Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 16 of the inquiry. We're due today to hear evidence on behalf of 5 parties. Coton Orchard, Houston Crest Properties and Miss Gaisley, firstly, followed by JWR Sadler, Goffway Residents Association, Matthew and Rachel Baker, and then Mark Sullivan. That's the order of proceedings for today. Before we get started, I'm just going to mention again something that both Mr. Underwood and I have mentioned on a number of occasions during the course of the inquiry, and that is the submission of additional documentation quite late in the day. It's something that we've sought to discourage because it's not helpful to any other party, nor indeed ourselves, in trying to prepare and deal with matters at the inquiry itself. And as far as today is concerned, we have received further late documentation in respect of 4 of the parties, I think, who are due to appear today. We've considered that, and clearly there are occasions when late documentation might be appropriate, unforeseen circumstances, changes. If it's simply speaking notes, that may well be acceptable, and we've tried to be flexible on that. We've reviewed the documents that we have recently received insofar as, and we're prepared to accept a number of them. Mr. Sadler's put in a document which I think is described as an oral proof, and that reflects his original proof. So we're treating that as his speaking notes for when he appears. In similar vein, Mr. Baker's document, that is consistent with what came in earlier, as is Ms. Fry's on behalf of the Residents Association. As far as Mr. Sullivan's document is concerned, that's essentially, well, documents I should say. There's no further statement, but he's put in, I think, a total of 7 documents in support of his case. 2 are already in as inquiry documents, so there is no issue there. That's his statement of case, and a report in relation to bus services. He's also submitted a series of email exchanges which relate to the substance of his objection. So again, no issue there. We are concerned about additional documentation concerning the East-West Railway, which relate to suggestions for his consultation, his responses to consultation in respect of that, and that's a matter which is not before this inquiry. So we're minded not to accept those 4 documents. So that deals with documents relating to evidence that we're going to hear today. In terms of other documents, there are 3 I just want to mention. Firstly, in respect of Mr. Singleton, who appeared yesterday, he had intended to submit slides relating to a PowerPoint presentation, which we didn't think were appropriate, but on reflection, we have accepted as an extract from that the first 2 pages, which I think are now up as an inquiry document, because they, in effect, summarise what he spoke about. There's then the vexed question of the county wildlife site. We've been pursuing the citation for this, which we originally received a document from Miss Gaisley in relation to Coton Orchard. We weren't sure about the status of that, and we've raised it again, and we've received a document from the applicant, which turns out to be the same document that Miss Gaisley originally submitted, so we've got it twice. It does it in the middle of that document. I think it's on page 4. It does say that it does give a decision date for that going forward as a county wildlife site. It just does leave a question in our minds in that what precedes the decision to make Coton Orchard a wildlife site is dealt with as a recommendation, and there's a reference to the recommended boundary. And so, although we know the date of the designation, what we're not entirely clear about is whether there were any changes to what went through, and I think that's just a loose end that needs to be tied up. And then the third document, the last one for now, is the letter sent on behalf of the applicant to Ashcroft Vets, which Mr. Cameron raised yesterday. And so that's, as we indicated yesterday, that's clearly accepted as an inquiry document. It's relevant to Ashcroft Vets' objection. And one thing we just wanted to raise, not to resolve now, Mr. Cameron, but there are a number of points in that letter addressing the objection that has been made. And it raises the query of how those points would actually be addressed in terms of the proposal before us, whether the applicant has in mind proposing modifications to the order or dealing with matters by way of condition in respect of the request for a direction and deemed planning permission. And that's perhaps something we can come back to on the penultimate day, but we thought it best to raise it now so that you can have that in mind. I think that's all I want to deal with just now. Mr. Cameron, do you have any points you wish to raise at the beginning of the day?
No, on the Ashcroft Vets point, we don't anticipate we'll be seeking a modification, but it depends on the precise arrangements that are agreed. But we will let you know as soon as agreement is reached.
Yes.
And on the county wildlife side, we will pursue the point that you raised.
Thank you very much.
Somebody's taken a note of that.
Does anybody else who's participating in the inquiry have any procedural queries? No, good. In that case, we'll move on to the first block of evidence for today, and that's Ms. Gaisley. Ms. Gaisley, when you're ready, would you introduce yourself and explain I think you're actually appearing on behalf of, I think it's 3 objectors, isn't it, that are rolled together, 3 parties. If you could just explain who they are and your relationship concerning them.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Anna Gaisley. I appear today to speak to my proof submitted to this inquiry. I speak as a long-standing resident of Coton, where I've lived for 30 years, as the present custodian of the living orchard itself, a place without a voice here, yet vital to the life it sustains, and as the daughter of a man who bought Coton Orchard in 1996 because when he saw the old orchards of his childhood in post-war 1940s Britain disappearing, he wanted at least one to endure. It is that legacy I am here to defend. I do not claim to be a credentialed expert in every discipline touched upon today. It would be impossible for any one person to be so. But for over nearly 10 years leading to this inquiry, I've had the benefit of learning directly from those who are local stewards, practitioners, and internationally recognized specialists. I come here not as a professional witness, but as a member of the public, bringing lived experience to this inquiry, and an intimate knowledge of the land that would be lost if this order were granted. As I have said before, I'm not opposed to public transport, nor am I now, in principle. I consider myself a good neighbour. Of course, I want this county to have better services and stronger connections for those who live here today and for those yet to call Cambridgeshire home. But goodwill toward transport does not answer the question before us, which concerns this proposal, a Transport and Works Act order on this route with these consequences. The question then is whether this particular GCP design scheme on this specific alignment, which leaves the road at Madingley Mulch, cuts through working farms and Coton Orchard, requires a third new bridge over the M11, and, per the order's own schedule of works, terminates at Grange Road, a congested endpoint with limited onward connectivity, is justified, proportionate, and necessary. Much of what we have heard from the applicant has been framed in the language of growth of jobs, housing, and economy. Central government has described Cambridge as the engine to drive economic growth across Britain. The question, therefore, is not whether that ambition exists, but whether this particular scheme on this alignment genuinely serves it. Yet this route risks obstructing the very national infrastructure on which that growth depends. Under Madingley Hill lies land identified for the Madingley Service Reservoir, part of the strategic water supply works linked to the Fens Reservoir project, a nationally significant infrastructure project. The scheme allows for up to 30 million litres of treated water to be stored within the safeguard zone of around 13 hectares. Recent consultation material indicates that additional land may be required for overflow infrastructure, including a pipeline to Binbrook, as a safety provision. While the precise route remains to be engineered, overflow from a service reservoir must follow the natural fall of the land, placing the corridor in direct tension with the busway alignment. At the same time, the proposed C2C busway crosses the planned route for East-West Rail on land that the Secretary of State has already safeguarded for the new railway. So whether by bored tunnel or cut and cover construction, the viability of that engineering decision has not yet been tested, and its outcome will dictate disruption across the GCP preferred scheme. I acknowledge that the overlay in my proof was basic, no more so, however, than the applicant's own route plans. Yet even a simple comparison with the Planning Inspectorate's published documents reveals clear spatial conflict. The applicant may say these matters can be resolved, but resolution here means redesign, delay, and cost. It does not mean compatibility. So after nearly 18 million of central government grants spent on preparation, the route now before you, sirs, is one that must avoid expanding national water infrastructure, accommodate future rail construction, and cuts through 4 wildlife sites, only to terminate at a congested point with limited onward connectivity. We are asked to accept these conflicts as somehow to be overcome, while being told by the applicant that it is impossible to provide a bus lane along the existing A1303 on this same hill, a corridor that faces none of these constraints and already carries a section of bus lane parallel to the orchard. A vague, guided or optical system is proposed here, while a proven highway measure is dismissed there. It is difficult to see how such a course would be said to represent sound planning judgment. The applicant contends that the Secretary of State must grant this order because the GCP-designated C2C scheme is necessary to unlock land for growth, pointing to planned developments such as at Bourne and West Cambourne and to the Section 106 agreements attached to them, as supposed proof of that need. I won't labour this point, but let's just pause for a moment and remind ourselves who sits on the GCP table. Cambridgeshire County Council, the Highways Authority, the accountable body for the GCP, and therefore the applicant for this order. South Cambridgeshire District Council, the Planning Authority. Cambridge City Council, so where the scheme ends, is responsible for local policy within the city, plus the University of Cambridge and representatives of big business. The only authority without a seat at that table is the Mayor and the Combined Authority, which he leads, the very body with statutory responsibility for commissioning and funding bus services. Mayor Bristow has already given evidence to this inquiry, confirming that he makes no guarantee that buses will operate on this route at all. So those agreements were drafted by the Planning Authority, South Cambridgeshire District Council, who also sits on the GCP board. And crucially, they do not bind delivery to this specific route. Even after later references to C2C were added, the core obligation remains flexible. For example, Bourne Airfield, 20 million towards the delivery of the C2C scheme, or an equivalent scheduled rapid mass transit passenger carrier service. West Cambourne, 8.7 million for C2C or other such strategic infrastructure scheme to benefit the development. So, a frequent, timetabled public bus service on existing roads could equally satisfy those requirements. The Section 106 agreements do not require an off-road busway, still less the GCP's specific alignment. If another transport solution meets public need, those obligations can be lawfully discharged by other means. And where the Planning Authority and the Highways Authority, as they do here, are in agreement, Section 106 agreements may be varied. So it follows that this order cannot be justified on the basis that it is needed to unlock growth. It must be judged on its own merits and on the evidence before you. Those merits are not made out. As to why the County Council may seek to draw 106 contributions into this scheme, one reason is financial exposure. The county, and by extension its taxpayers, is the accountable body for the GCP and carries liability for any funding shortfall. GCP schemes are already over-programmed, with a declared deficit of 73 million to 2024, so before this inquiry has even started. Funding this scheme would therefore risk displacing other essential projects that may better serve public need. The cost of C2C itself has already risen from 165.2 million to 192.3 million, a 16.4% increase by the applicant's own figures. So it's difficult to see how it can remain under 200 million. There is precedent. The St Ives Guided Busway, also a county scheme, exceeded its budget by over 65 million, nearly 60% overrun, and remains associated with additional cost and legal dispute. In that context, it is understandable that the applicant seeks available contribution, but that does not establish the necessity or value of the C2C scheme that you have before you. If anything, it reveals a pattern of financial risk that should give this inquiry pause, especially when Cambridgeshire County Council has already declared a 34.2 million budget shortfall for 2025-26. The Department for Transport's own value for money framework classifies any benefit cost ratio below 1.0 as poor. The C2C scheme entered this inquiry with a BCR of 0.43, meaning that for every pound spent, only 43 pence is returned in public benefit. The applicant will seek to lift the figure by citing land value uplift and wider economic assumptions, but those are speculative gains, not guarantees. And in the end, the question is not how far the numbers can be stretched, but who truly benefits and who bears the cost. So, let us follow the route set out in the order. It leaves Cambourne and heads east along or alongside the existing A428 and A1303. Many assume the GCP's proposal is fully off-road and segregated throughout, but in reality, more than half lies within the existing highway. It is only at Madingley Mulch, where it departs from the road, that the true cost, impact, and objections begin. From that point, it turns across Madingley Hill taking productive agricultural land, and I will leave Mr. Sadler to speak to that. It then crosses public and informal paths, long used by walkers, children, farm workers, and wildlife, cutting through 29 hedgerows within the scheme boundary. From there, it crosses Cambridge Road and enters Coton Orchard, the principal focus of my evidence today. Coton Orchard is not a gap on a map. It is one of the largest remaining traditional orchards in Cambridgeshire. Designated a priority habitat under the UK Biodiversity Action Plan and a county wildlife site. It is a living, working landscape with over a century of continuity, where fruit trees, grassland, and hedgerows function as a single habitat. It is neither derelict nor monocultural. It is one of the last living fragments of a landscape of which more than 90% has already been lost in England since the 1950s. This is a habitat with ecological memory. More than 100 botanical species have been recorded in its understory. Mosses, liverworts, fungi, typically associated with ancient woodland, are established here, confirming, as ecological evidence has shown, that this site has matured far beyond commercial cultivation. Species have been identified that would ordinarily be expected only in sites such as Madingley Wood SSSI. Coton Orchard may not form a perfect block that meets every advisory checklist. Very few surviving orchards do. But when over 90% have already been lost, what remains must be judged by its substance, not its symmetry. Stand within it, and you will see those checklists what those checklists were written to protect. A mosaic habitat of fruit trees, deadwood, grassland, hedgerows, and soil, and the life that depends upon them. Coton Orchard is not simply preserved, it is actively tended. For over 30 years, it has been managed without pesticides, restoring soil health, recovering heritage apple varieties, new planting on traditional rootstocks to secure longevity, more than 1,200 native hedgerow trees, and over 150 fruit trees have been added since 2022 through volunteer effort, not public grant. It is managed as a traditional orchard with wide spacing, deadwood, and grassland deliberately retained, because that is what sustains that habitat. It is conservation practice, not just on paper. Apple trees age differently from woodland, oak, or ash. Within a few decades, they develop the features that define veteran trees: hollows, cavities, standing and fallen deadwood, water pockets, features recognised under the National Planning Policy Framework as irreplaceable habitat. Yet those same characteristics that give them ecological value also render them structurally fragile. The applicant now accepts the veteran status of those founding Bramleys, yet still asserts that no loss or deterioration would result from the scheme. 3, they say, can be retained in situ. 3 can be translocated elsewhere. But these trees do not exist as specimens. They are part of a single ecological unit, linked underground by mycorrhizal networks through which resources and chemical signals are exchanged. Severing that network is not mitigation, it is disconnection and decline. There is a single example: the relocation of a mulberry at the Genome campus does not withstand scrutiny. That tree was not veteran, nor was it an apple. As ecological evidence has made clear, relocating veteran Bramleys, shorter-lived fruit trees with far more fragile root systems, is not a project that would have a successful outcome. Despite assurances that translocation will avoid harm, the applicant's own method statement makes the reality clear. I quote, "The trees will be dragged on the floor on a pipe road to their new locations." That single word, dragged, tells its own story. No veteran tree, hollowed by age and sustained through its roots would survive that intact. Inspectors, you've seen these trees for yourselves. The hollowed trunks, the gnarled and fissured boughs. I've seen limbs fall under nothing more than wind. Left undisturbed, they will continue to sustain a rich assemblage of species for decades yet, allowing the younger Bramley seedlings beside them to assume their role in succession. But they would not survive the severing of roots or the carving of a construction corridor across their line. This is not the loss of individual trees, it is the collapse of a living system. These 12 original Bramleys stand as the gateway road to the orchard, sentinels guarding the habitat beyond. Under the county wildlife selection criteria for traditional orchards, at least 20% of trees must display veteran features. In the Coton submission, it is recorded that most have veteran features. We formally recorded only the oldest simply through limited resources and on the advice of Woodland Trust. That does not make the remaining trees, among the 490 the applicant proposes to fell, any less critical to the habitat they support. Once a traditional orchard is fragmented, its ecology declines. And when viability goes, stewardship goes with it. This habitat is not passive. It must be actively managed season after season. The reality is too often overlooked by proposals that treat green spaces as though it was inert. Coton Orchard is not a passive countryside, it is an active refuge. The applicant's own surveyors recorded 42 breeding bird species within the orchard in 2024, including Section 41 priority species. Independent records identify over 60 species in total, with 29 on the red or amber conservation lists. The site lies within the turtle dove friendly zone, and turtle doves, among the most endangered farm birds in Europe, are part of the assemblage it supports. House martins in the summer, fieldfares and redwings in the winter, all feed and shelter here. This is not incidental presence, it is ecological reliance. National policy recognises what this represents. The NPPF requires refusal of development that would result in the loss of irreplaceable habitats, including veteran trees and traditional orchards, unless wholly exceptional reasons exist. There is no such reason here. No housing allocation, no safety imperative, no overriding national need. To permit the scheme is not to balance competing habitat interests, it is to extinguish a living system that cannot be recreated. A compulsory purchase order, which is in effect what would be granted through this order, must serve a compelling case in the public interest, ordinarily understood to mean benefit of a national or significant regional level. It is difficult to see how a 1.6-mile section of busway could meet that threshold on its own. The reason this scheme has drawn national, even international attention is not because of the scant benefit this short stretch might bring to the public, but because of the sheer scale of destruction it proposes, most notably to Coton Orchard. Over 24,000 people have signed the CPPF petition. Concerns about the consequences of pursuing this scheme have also been expressed publicly by leading figures in the field, including Sir Partha Dasgupta, Nobel Prize-winning economist, Sir David King, former Chief Scientific Advisor to the UK government, and Lord Whitty, former Chair of the House of Lords of the Environment Committee. 14 national and regional environmental organisations have formally supported the call to protect Coton Orchard, including the Woodland Trust, the People's Trust for Endangered Species, and the Wildlife Trust, to name just 3. This is not a fringe campaign. It is a broad, cross-party, evidence-based objection to a scheme whose environmental cost is out of all proportion to its claimed benefit. England has lost more than 90% of its traditional orchards in the past century. Here in Cambridgeshire, one of the most nature-depleted and water-stressed counties in the country, what remains of that heritage carries exceptional weight. Coton Orchard is not an isolated stand of trees. It is the last trace of a once prevalent landscape, holding ecological, cultural, and historical continuity in a form that policy recognises as irreplaceable. The question before this inquiry is not whether transport should improve, nor whether growth should be supported, but whether this specific scheme has demonstrated the necessity and proportionality required to justify permanent adverse effects to a county wildlife site and priority habitat. No compelling case has been made to show it is the only means of meeting public need. There is no secured operator, no defined guidance system, no certainty of benefit, and no exceptional justification capable of overriding the national policy presumption against the destruction of veteran trees and traditional orchard. It has been argued that growth demands it, yet the authorities making that claim retain, through 106 and other instruments, the power to grant or vary consents without it. It has been argued that mitigation can replace it, yet what is proposed is not continuity but disconnection. The fragmentation of a functioning habitat into isolated remnants. To approve such a course would not be to balance competing interests, but to extinguish a living system that cannot be recreated once severed. A further concern lies in how alternatives have been dismissed. The on-road option advanced by CPPF and the Coton Parish Council was not speculative nor uninformed about the American Military Cemetery or the 1954 diplomatic note. It was prepared with diplomatic and technical awareness, yet scrutinised as though it was a fully funded highway submission, rather than the reasonable proposal developed on limited means that it is. To characterise the cemetery or SSSI as an absolute barrier is misleading. The issue is not perfection of an alternative, but the refusal to meaningfully consider one. When I wrote in my submission that the harm to the SSSI of the CPPF on-road route was marginal in comparison to a road bisecting Coton Orchard, I was referring to how close it came to just the boundary versus going through the middle of the orchard, and I still assert that. However, last night, walking back home, one second, I saw that there was a lot of construction going on along the Madingley Road in Madingley Wood. So
Sorry, Miss Gaisley, you say in Madingley Wood, do you mean in the SSSI?
In the SSSI, Madingley Wood SSSI.
Yes.
So I was going home from here yesterday, and I saw a lot of heavy machinery operating there. So I called Professor David Coombs, head of the Cambridge University's Forestry, Ecology and Conservation Group, and he told me that a very large patch of almost pure ash was now considered too dangerous to keep standing because of dieback. So the decision has been made to clear it all and replant. So in that context, the relative ecological importance of the orchard compared with the SSSI on this issue has therefore increased since the inquiry began. So I will close with the words of Superintendent Matthew Brown of the Cambridge American Military Cemetery, a US Army officer and West Point graduate who spoke to the GCP Executive Board on the 1st of July 2021. The Madingley Hill landscape is a place of beauty that has been valued by many generations and is worthy of preservation. The unspoiled open countryside in the Greenbelt, We are concerned that GCP's proposal to build a tarmac bus route across the south side of the hill would irreparably damage this unique and precious landscape, severing historic community access routes and paving the way for further urban encroachment. And so my question is, will you consider rejecting a scheme that so manifestly damages such a sensitive and internationally recognised landscape? The GCP did not heed that question, so now, inspectors, it rests with you. I respectfully invite this inquiry to recommend refusal of the order and to require that any future transport solution meets demonstrable need without sacrificing what can never be replaced. Thank you for allowing me to speak freely here today.
Thank you, Ms. Gaisley. Mr. Cameron, is it Ms. Henderson? Right, okay.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Daisley, good morning. A few
Good morning.
preliminary matters. Your proof of evidence, is it accurate in all respects?
I don't purport to say that I produced a perfect thesis. It's as good as I could have made it.
Do you need to make any corrections to your proof this morning before we start?
As I said, I don't purport for it to be perfect.
Are you aware of the Planning Inspectorate's guidance on the use of artificial intelligence?
No.
The Planning Inspectorate issued guidance that if you use AI to create any part of a document, you should tell the Planning Inspectorate that you've done that and made a declaration. Do you need to make such a declaration in respect of your proof of evidence?
If things like Google and AI and ChatGPT is included, yes, that did assist me in my preparation.
Right.
Has the applicant made similar declarations?
You only need to if you use AI. We haven't, so no declarations needed.
So when Mr. Baker said he used word search and to determine how many times that Coat and Orchard appeared, it wasn't with artificial intelligence, he did it manually?
Ms. Daisley, I'm talking about AI, ChatGPT, things like that, and you've used them, haven't you?
I have used them, yes.
Yeah, right.
In fact, it's something encouraged by this government.
Your evidence, you said this morning from a personal perspective, you don't possess any arboricultural qualification though, do you?
I don't possess arboricultural qualifications, which is why I engaged David Franklin, who does.
And you don't claim to be an arboricultural expert either, do you?
That's why I had to engage David Franklin.
And you've had the opportunity to read Mr. Alder's evidence both before today and indeed before you turned up to ask him some questions a couple of weeks ago. That's right, isn't it?
That's right, yes.
Move then to translocation, please. Now, just in terms of the approach, because you've got no expert qualifications yourself, you seek to persuade the inspectors of your position on translocation by identifying sources to support your view that translocation will lead to loss or deterioration. That's right, isn't it?
In part, yes. I also sought advice from David Franklin, who I engaged as a veteran tree specialist and a member of the Arboricultural Association.
Now, the credibility of your view depends on the credibility of the sources that you identify supporting that view, doesn't it?
Well, actually, my view doesn't really matter. It's what the planners are persuaded.
Sure, but you want the inspectors to think that your position on translocation is credible, and therefore that question of credibility turns on the credibility of the sources which you identify in support of your position, doesn't it?
Including the Woodland Trust and David Franklin, yes.
And similarly, the weight to be afforded to your view depends on the weight to be afforded to the sources that you identify in support of your view. That's right, isn't it?
Correct.
Can you turn, please, to your proof of evidence? Have you got a copy?
This one?
Yeah. And can you go to internal page 11, please?
Yep.
It's the same in the PDF. And you're dealing here, on top of page 11, some supplementary notes and updated matters. And you're responding, you will see at the next subheading, to the ESA. And ask you to move down to the... So that's where we are here, I should say. And then if you can move forward, please, to page 12. So that's the context for this. Page 12, you've got a photograph, figure 9. Do you see that? Bottom of page 12.
Yeah.
And then immediately below that, there's a paragraph that starts at the bottom of page 12 and runs over to page 13. And this is where you deal with transplantation, isn't it?
Yep.
And you make a number of criticisms of what is set out in the environmental statement, Appendix TR 14.2 specifically. And if we just look at the final sentence on page 12, you refer to these century-old brambles. These are not just old apple trees, they're key biological structures, etc. And you say at the end of that sentence that they cannot survive relocation. So turning over the page, please.
To 13.
To top of 13.
Yeah.
You then go on, you say peer-reviewed research is clear. Cowan et al. 2011 found that transplanting mature trees results in extensive root loss and high mortality. Strauss and Winter 1994 concluded that veteran trees should not be moved because of the high risk that they will not survive the shock of being transplanted. And those last words are a quotation. Do you see all of those?
I do.
And Cowan et al. And Strauss and Winter, they're the peer-reviewed research that you're referring to on that page, yes?
On this page, but it's not the only research that I've referred to the veteran tree translocation.
Now, let's look at the first of those, please. You give us a footnote, Cowan et al. 2011, footnote 2. Do you see that?
I do.
And if we look at footnote 2, you repeat the name, repeat the date, physiological decline in mature transplanted trees, that's the name of the article.
I can
You
read.
say it comes from the Arboricultural Journal, volume 33, part 4, pages 235 to 248, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Pick up, please, Mr. Alder's rebuttal proof of evidence. If you don't have it, we can pop it on the screen for you.
Yeah.
And it's page 4 of that once we've loaded it for you. Just bear with us. Right, so on page 4, there's a subheading rebuttal, trees will not survive translocation. Do you see that? We got it on the screen for you? Yeah, right. And what Mr. Alder's done is he's looked at your proof of evidence. Then he's looked at 3.2.1 subparagraph A, he's looked at that reference, and he's gone away to see if he can find it. And he's gone to the Arboricultural Journal, he's looked at volume 33, number 4, April 2011, which is the reference you gave him. And we get the contents page there. Do you see that on that page?
I do.
You know, it doesn't include any article by A. Cowan, does it?
As I said, I don't present my proof as a perfect document. However, for example, with the latest submission of Civic Trees, former director, I think I've supplied information that might help inform inspectors as to the feasibility of translocating these veteran trees. But I think more than academic papers, the inspectors have seen for themselves those trees. They are hollowed, they are fragile. The features that make them veteran trees, which Mr. Alder has also written in his proof, is what makes them structurally very poor. And the thought that you can mechanically sever the roots, pull them up, drag them the length of the orchard to put them in a hole beside a new concrete bridge next to a retention pond and expect them to survive with no deterioration defies credibility.
Mr. Aisley, I need you to answer the question. The question is this. The article that you refer to by Gowan et al.
I will concede that I am fallible
It doesn't exist, does
and
it?
that I've made, well, it does exist, but I've made an incorrect link.
Well, it's not just an incorrect link. We can't find any reference to this article at all. It doesn't,
I will concede that I'm not perfect and I've made a mistake.
It doesn't exist, does it? Did you even read it?
I did read it, but it was on a computer screen, and you can show me that I've got it wrong, and I will concede in terms of retrieving that one study that I've got it wrong. But my contention still is that I'm here as a member of the public, not as an expert witness, not represented by counsel, doing my absolute best to provide information of what's happening on the ground. So yes, you are absolutely correct. You've got me, Mr. Henderson. I need to revisit my ability to proofread.
It's not just proofreading, Ms. Daisy.
Well, okay. I need to be much
that
better
doesn't exist.
at referencing.
This document doesn't exist. It's been made up,
You've got
hallucinated
me.
by AI, hasn't it?
You've got me. I don't have that document.
It doesn't exist, does it?
But it does not detract.
No, Ms. Daisy,
from
answer the
facts.
question. That article
Mr.
does
Henderson,
not exist, does
Mr.
it?
Henderson, I'm not a criminal defendant, and you're not a prosecutor.
I'd be great. I know people are extremely interested in this case, but I'd be grateful if you could just restrain yourselves. Mr. Underwood and I need to clearly follow what's being said between the parties.
Ms. Jaisley, I'll put the question to you again and you can answer the question for the inspector's benefit. That article doesn't exist, does it?
It would have appeared that that article does not exist.
Right.
But does that take away from the fact that those veteran trees are structurally fragile, and the thought of dragging them across the whole of the orchard and believe that they will not be harmed whatsoever, all three of them, and that all three, though you say can be retained in situ, will also not be harmed with construction vehicles travelling across a corridor, east-west, for 2 years, and survive with no deterioration. All 6 of them, no deterioration. Is that credible?
So when we go back to your proof of evidence, please, on page 13 where we were before, you are asserting here, by reference to this article which does not exist, the short point is because that article does not exist, that is not a credible statement that you've made that peer-reviewed research supports your position, is it?
That single document, correct, but that no peer-reviewed research, I would say, is incorrect. And as I submitted later to the inquiry, emails from, one moment, I have to look it up, Civic Trees, Derek Newman, and he said that in his opinion, and he was the one, he's the one that's part of the company of the example that Mr. Alder provided, said that in his opinion, when you're talking about veteran trees, it is not feasible to move with any degree of success. He does not believe it's a project that would have a successful outcome.
Now stay with page 13 of your proof of evidence. Footnote 3, you provided us with a link to the document that you seek to rely on here. Do you see that? Footnote 3, and then you've put a link and the hyperlink at the end. Do you see that?
I do see it, and you've already proven your point, Mr. Henderson.
No, I need to ask
My
you some questions
referencing
about
is
that.
poor, and I will put my hand up to that.
Well, Ms. Daisy,
But that still doesn't take away from what the point that I'm trying to make.
Ms. Daisy, can we short-circuit this? Mr. Alder, he says this in his rebuttal proof of evidence. His same part we were before, but we have to turn over the page to 3.2.3. He's followed your link. He's looked for the direct quotation that you've purported to give, and it doesn't exist in that document. And that's also correct, isn't it?
As I said, you're very clever. You've got me. I've put in a link of a document that you couldn't find or doesn't exist. I'll put my hand up to it.
You-
I have not said that my proof is perfect.
You've
I have not come here as a professional witness, sirs.
But you've purported to quote from a linked document, and you've done so inaccurately, haven't you?
As I said, I am not perfect. I've not come here as a professional witness. I've already said I'm not an arboriculturist. I have no experience in moving veteran trees. And in fact, Mr. Alder himself, when asked by the inspectors, also said that he has no experience moving veteran trees. And that's why he sought to engage experts in the field and engage Ruskin, not Civic, which is the people that moved the mulberry tree that he used as his single example. So curious as to why you would not, if you say that you do not have the expertise to move a veteran Bramley tree yourself, and none of my experts say that it was possible, I thought I'd go and ask the company that moved the tree that you said in your example. And he came back and said, it's not possible.
So when we go back to your proof of evidence, page 13,
Correct.
both of the references that you've
You've
given
got there, Mr.
are
Henderson, you've got me. You're
incorrect,
very
aren't they?
clever. Can we move on?
They're both incorrect, aren't they?
I think it's asked and answered, no?
And therefore, what follows from that point, we've agreed that the credibility of your evidence depends on the credibility of the sources you're able to cite. What follows from that is you are not able to cite any credible sources in your proof of evidence to support the views that you set out in that paragraph. That's right, isn't it?
It's not correct, because the additional note that I put and the inspectors have accepted, which includes the former director of Civic Trees, the company that moved the mulberry, which is the only example of a successful translocation that Mr. Alder gave, because he said himself is not an expert, has said that translocation is not possible.
So you don't rely on those footnotes, you now rely instead on what we have as CD 2964, if I understood your answer correctly.
I produced a proof, not as an expert, but as somebody that's trying to save Coton Orchard.
Right.
You're very clever, Mr. Henderson.
Can we pick up, please?
I did get the references wrong, but nonetheless, my point still stands.
Can we pick up, please, CD 2964, which is the document you just referred to? And what you've given us at CD 2964, the first page you've provided a transcript of some words from a YouTube video, but it's the second and third pages we need to start with. And on the second page and the third page, you provided 2 emails from the 3rd of October 2025. Is that correct?
You have to move down.
On the second and third page.
Yes, that's the date, from
Yeah.
Derek Newman.
And you provided those to the inquiry last week on the 15th, yes?
If that's the date.
And on the same day, Womble Bond Dickinson, solicitors for the applicant, wrote to you by email, and they said, to ensure that our team can respond fully and to insist the inquiry, we would be grateful if you could please provide us with a full copy of the email correspondence and any attachments to the same that were made between you and Civic Trees and Derek Newman at Glendale Services. Do you remember receiving that email?
I do, and I responded the same day.
You did respond, and you refused to provide the full email chain, didn't you?
That's not quite correct. Would you like to read my email out?
No, I don't need to. You didn't provide the full email chain, did you?
In my email, I said, and I can't quote because I don't have it to hand, essentially, that within that document is all that was received from Derek Newman, and that other than that email, all I'd done was approach Civic Trees to say, can you give me some information about what you think. I explained them that was being used as an example of translocation, and could they tell me whether they think that it could be applied to a Bramley tree. I couldn't find the original email because it was responded to me by Derek Newman directly, and the response that I got was there. And what I also put in that email, responding to Womble, was that I'd also written to Ruskin, because that's the company that the applicant chose to engage, not Civic, which I already thought was strange. Because in the Ruskin example within Mr. Alder's proof, they only provided anecdotal evidence. So they said that they'd moved lots of fruit trees for a Jewish community in North London. It was all fine, whatever the exact text was. But they did not give any specific tree, any age, any size, where they'd done it. So I made the same, basically I cut and pasted the same query to them, and they replied that they weren't going to respond because of commercial reasons. So I said to Womble, well, I'm sure you'll be providing all of the email correspondence to Ruskins to the inspectors as well.
Now, in respect of an email such as this, let's just see if we can agree some principles. The weight of an expert view turns, amongst other things, on, firstly, the instructions to that expert, what questions you ask them. That's right, isn't it?
I wrote a letter, an email.
Answer the principle. We'll get to what you did in a moment. But in terms of the matter of principle, the weight to be afforded to an expert view turns on, amongst other matters, the instructions that you give to that expert, doesn't it?
I wasn't instructing civet trees. I was only making an inquiry based on my own investigations of Mr. Alder's proof so that I would be able to ask succinct questions.
Now, another matter we can agree is a matter of principle.
Haven't agreed anything.
The weight of an expert's view also turns on the information they consider. That's right, isn't it?
As I said, I didn't instruct civet trees. I was just asking about an example that Mr. Alder provided this inquiry.
And a third thing, the weight of an expert view also turns on the qualifications of that person purporting to give the view, correct?
Again, I didn't instruct civet trees. I was responding to evidence provided by Mr. Alder. And if you consider that civet trees don't have sufficient capabilities or qualifications, then why on earth did you use them as the example?
And in respect of this email chain, we don't have the question that you asked, do we?
I don't have the question that I asked because I can't find it amongst my emails.
We don't have a copy of any information that you may have provided to Mr. Newman, do we?
As I said in my response to Womble's, all I asked was, can you let me know if that example that's been used by Mr. Alder is applicable to a veteran fruit tree that is an apple tree, not a mulberry?
And on page 3, we understand what Mr. Newman's job title is, but we otherwise have no information about his qualifications or experience, do we?
Well, he owned the company that you say is the expert in moving the mulberry tree.
Now, look, please.
He also writes that he's had 20 years of experience and was the one that established the company that Mr. Alder said was the expert at moving fruit trees.
Look, please, at page 2. So this is the 3rd of October 2025, email 11:39. So it starts, Dear Anna, and move down, please, to the 3rd paragraph. It says, I have. Do you see that?
I've looked at Coat and Orchard website and have some understanding of the situation.
So pause in there. The material that Mr. Newman says he's looked at is your website, correct?
Correct.
He's not had the benefit of a site visit, correct?
Correct. However, Ruskin has never set foot on Coat and Orchard either, neither has Civic Trees, and actually the applicant have engaged Ruskin to move the trees, and they've only worked from photos, and I provided on our website our photos pretty much the same as the photos that will have been provided to Ruskin. So why is it okay for the applicant, but somehow Derek Newman, who has experience of moving veteran fruit trees, or in fact he says that he would never say that you could definitively do them, is somehow lesser?
Unlike Ruskin's, Mr. Newman has not had the opportunity to have a telephone conversation with an arboricultural expert like Mr. Alder, who's done a survey of the relevant trees, has he?
Well, because
No,
Mr. Newman
answer the question
is
first.
an arboricultural expert.
He's not had the benefit of a telephone conversation with an arboricultural expert who's actually surveyed the trees, correct?
Not correct.
Which arboricultural expert who surveyed the trees did he have a telephone conversation with then?
David Franklin.
Right. So no reference to that. Was that in your email? Was that in the earlier emails? Can you speak to David? Is this all in the email chains we haven't seen? Or are you just making it up today, Miss Jaisley?
Right, Sorry, I realise that this is something where sort of emotions are running high, but I'm hearing a lot of noises in the audience, which is quite distracting for me. And you may well disagree with the applicant, but it can be distracting for them. So please, this isn't a type of meeting that you might expect in a village hall or something where we show approval or disapproval by clapping or booing. We're here to hear the evidence of Ms. Gazy, so please can I ask, as Mr. Clegg has already asked, that everybody can keep quiet. Please don't show approval or disapproval because it's distracting and it doesn't help us hear what Ms. Gazy's got to say. So thank you.
I'll put the question again, Ms. Gaisley. Are you saying that Mr. Newman spoke to your expert, Mr. David Franklin, before he sent you this email at 11:39 on the 3rd of October 2025?
No.
Right. So I'll put the question to you again. Unlike Rustins, who had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Alder, who'd been on site and surveyed the relevant trees, Mr. Derek Newman did not have the opportunity to speak to an arboricultural expert who'd been on site and surveyed the trees. That's correct, isn't it?
Have you also provided evidence that Mr. Alder spoke on the telephone with Ruskins?
Ms. Gazy, what would be more helpful for us is perhaps if you can answer the question and then provide any qualification afterwards. So if the question is capable of a yes or no answer, if you do that, but then by all means afterwards, if you can provide any qualification. Thank you.
As far as I'm aware, Mr. Newman hadn't had a phone conversation with somebody that surveyed the site before making his opinion.
Now, in terms of what he says, he refers to your website, but he doesn't make any reference to the application documents, correct?
The application documents?
Yes, the application documents produced by the applicant, submitted to the Secretary of State.
The Transport Works Act order?
Yes, exactly.
No, he has not looked at the Transport Works Act order.
Doesn't make any reference either to Mr. Alder's evidence or the tree survey undertaken by Mr. Alder, does he?
Not specifically. However, as an arboricultural expert with 20 years knowledge of moving large trees, and the guy that established the company that your Mr. Alder cites as the only example of a successful translocation, I would say has a pretty good idea of whether Bramley trees of the age and fragility of the ones at Coton Orchard can be moved the entire length of the orchard unscathed. And surely that's the point.
So in terms of those matters which are directly relevant to the weight that one gives to a view, instructions, information considered and qualifications, in all three respects, the email that you provided is lacking, isn't it?
I don't agree. As I keep saying, this man founded the company that Mr. Alder cited as the expert that moved the 100-year-old mulberry in the Genome Campus, the only actual example that he cited. And when the inspectors asked him the question of, do you have any specific knowledge of how to move a veteran tree, Mr. Alder, he said no. I'm not telling the inspectors to believe me. I'm telling the inspectors, believe your eyes.
And then when we read on down the email, below that paragraph, it moves to general methods for relocation. Do you see that subheading?
I do.
Move down, please, to the next subheading, relocating mature trees generally, frame and crane method. Do you see that?
I do.
And the second bullet point within that section refers to undertaking at least 2 years' worth of root pruning. Do you see that?
Yes.
Pick up, please, Mr. Alder's proof of evidence, and we can put this on the screen for you if you don't have it. And within that, I need you to look at page 16, please. That's paragraph 6.5. I'll just pull that up for you. Great, we've got it, and I think the inspectors are getting there. At paragraph 6.5, this is all dealing with the translocation methodology that Mr. Alder's agreed with Ruskins. Root pruning is to be carried out over 3 separate events, i.e. 3 seasonal events, to alleviate the impact and allow the trees to cope with changes. So the first thing we can agree is that the methodology proposed by the applicant is over an additional and extended period of time, isn't it, compared to Mr. Newman's email, yes?
Mr. Newman gave a very generalised observation, but yes.
Yes, and in that respect, the extended period of time is a more precautionary approach, isn't it? Because, as it says in paragraph 6.5, by carrying out 3 separate events, that allows you to alleviate the impact and allow the trees to cope with the changes. That's more precautionary, isn't it?
But also later in the same document, he says that this is all done without the benefit of soil survey, site visit, or any exploration below the surface. And in fact, Mr. Alder, when he came to do the site visit, which was attended by National Trust, Stuart Payne and Mr. Franklin, also said that he only surveyed what he could see and had absolutely no knowledge of what was below the surface. And when you're talking about root balling and how you prune the root mass, that would be quite significant.
Ms. Daisley, we hear the caveat, but we need the answer. And the answer to my question is yes. The translocation methodology proposed here is more precautionary than that set out by Mr. Newman, isn't it? Subject to your caveat, but it is more precautionary, yes?
It is 1 year more than Mr. Newman put in his email, yes.
Yes, and therefore, because of that additional time, and as it says at paragraph 6.5, it allows you to alleviate the impact, allow the trees to cope with the changes, it is on that basis more precautionary, isn't it?
But it doesn't make it possible.
Is the answer yes, but it doesn't make it possible? Or no, but it doesn't make
Mr. Henderson, Ms. Gaisley's already said yes. I've noted it.
Well, I'm grateful, sir. Same page. Look at paragraph 6.3, please. The surface of the root ball will be mulched to boost moisture retention and increase mycorrhizal activity in the retained root ball. Mulching also has the benefit of reducing weed competition and it help with keeping mows and trimmers away from the base of the tree. So specific reference to mulching as a preparatory step. And can I ask you to look down, please, at 6.4 as well. It's usual to apply a treatment to boost microorganisms within the soil and assist the trees to respond to the intervention works, and the health of the trees will be monitored through those. Do you see both of those paragraphs?
I can see those paragraphs.
Go back, please, to...
But one caveat, if I could add, again, Ruskins has not visited the site. They have not done soil tests, neither has Mr. Alder. And actually, there is a very complex mycorrhizal fungi network already in existence because the soil is very, very healthy. So unlike soils, for example, at Lower Valley Farm, where you've got, you don't have the benefit of those mycorrhizal networks, you would add some mycorrhizal microbes in order to promote them, but they already exist in our soil. So what would be achieved when you do these root prunings, that you'll be severing those networks, not promoting them.
Go back, please, to the emails at 2964. Do you see that email? And we're looking at the methodology. That doesn't include either mulching or the application of the treatment that is referred to in the methodology in Mr. Alder's proof of evidence. They're both omitted, aren't they?
Well, that wasn't intended to be a comprehensive instruction of how to move the Bramley apple trees, because Mr. Newman does not believe that those veteran Bramley apple trees can be moved.
Neither of those items are included within the description of works on which Mr. Newman expresses his view. That's right, isn't it?
It's correct that it's not there, I agree.
And
But the caveat is, he doesn't believe that such a project would be successful. And to go into detail about something that you don't believe can happen would be a waste of all of our time.
And both of the steps that I've taken you to, the mulching and the treatment, they are, for the reasons explained in Mr. Alder's proof of evidence, matters which mean that the methodology set out there is more precautionary than that which is set out by Mr. Newman. That's right, isn't it?
It's technically accurate. However, as I've said, Mr. Newman does not believe, and he is the man that established the company, that you say in your only example that translocation can be successful, that he does not believe that such a translocation would be successful. And it doesn't make sense to be extra precautionary about a thing that you believe cannot be achieved.
Now, go back please to Mr Alder's proof of evidence, page 16, where we were before, and look please at paragraphs 6.11 and 6.12 at the bottom of that page. Take them in turn. Paragraph 6.11 explains the preparation of the site, and in the second sentence it explains that the ground guys will be removed after 3 winters, below ground guys 2 years later, and 6.12 aftercare and monitoring will be required for at least 10 years post-translocation with reviews. Hold that in your mind. Go back please to CD 2964, which is the emails we were looking at a moment ago. And in the middle of that page, the section we're looking at, the relocating mature trees generally, final bullet point, plan for at least 3 years maintenance following relocation. So the maintenance and monitoring proposed in Mr Alder's methodology is considerably more extensive in duration and extent than that put in Mr Newman's email, correct?
Again, the words are there, technically correct. However, I think it would be insulting to my intelligence and the inspectors to say that for Mr. Newman to say a complex system of how you would maintain something that you don't believe would survive the translocation is frankly just incredible.
And again, the methodology presented by Mr Alder, because of that those additional steps that we've looked at in terms of monitoring and aftercare, it is more precautionary, isn't it?
It is more precautionary, but again, you're talking about aftercare for something that won't survive the translocation.
So when we step back and we compare the view that you put forward and the view in Mr Alder's proof of evidence, we have on the one hand Mr Newman's methodology here, and on the other hand we have Mr Alder's methodology, which for each of the 3 reasons I've just been through with you is more precautionary. We can agree with that, can't we?
I can agree that Mr Alder is much more precautionary about the gravesite of our Bramley trees than Mr Newman, who doesn't want to dig the grave in the first place.
And for the inspectors to understand, well, what weight are we going to give to the view of Mr Newman? This is somebody who's expressed a view that, based on a methodology which is not precautionary in the ways that I set out. That's right, isn't it?
Well, I would disagree in the sense that Mr Newman is more precautionary because he's saying, don't dig them out, don't drag them along the length of the orchard, and don't put them beside a motorway bridge because they will die.
In terms of the methodology, the basis on which an assessment is made, the assessment he makes
is that it would die if you tried to dig it up
Let me finish
and
the
move
question. The assessment which he makes is based on a methodology which is less precautionary than the methodology considered by Mr Alder. That's correct, isn't it?
I don't agree because his email and by extension methodology is don't dig it up in the first place.
And then when we look at page 3, which I think is the part, have you added the red box on
I
page
have added
3?
the red box, yes.
Okay. And then what he says at the end before he signs off, he says, this is a very short summary of points based on limited knowledge of the trees. And then he goes on to give his opinion. He himself has included an express caveat in that final sentence, in the very sentence he gives the view on which you rely, that it's based on limited knowledge of the trees. That's right, isn't it?
That is right, which is the same as Ruskins, who you've engaged, who wrote in Mr Alder's proof, in their document, a caveat that they will need to have a site survey, they will need to come to see the trees in order to make a confident, definitive decision.
No.
Which is the same as Mr Newman.
Here, having regard to the missing information on instructions, on information considered, on qualifications, and having regard to the clear differences in how precautionary the methodologies are, the correct position is that Mr Alder's evidence should be preferred, isn't it?
that's not the correct position. And I can't think how any sane person would think that that was the correct position.
And in this-
Because the company that Mr. Alder, who says to the inspectors that he doesn't have qualifications or expertise in translocating trees, that somebody who owned, established, and does have 20 years of experience of moving large fruit trees, says it can't be moved. So how would you prefer Mr. Alder's testimony to the professional opinion of the guy, and I'll say it again, that established, founded...
You don't need... I think we've got the point about what your...
Thank you.
About what Mr. Newman's experience is. Thank you.
And the only arboricultural expert who the inspectors have heard from and had the opportunity to ask questions of is Mr. Alder, isn't it?
I believe so. Oh, no, actually, Dominic Woodfield.
I asked him that. He's got no arboricultural qualifications. We shut that one down straight away. So I'll put the question to you
Okay.
again. Mr. Alder is the only arboricultural expert who the inspectors have had the opportunity to hear from and ask questions of, correct?
Correct.
Excuse me, there's a lady standing at the back. There are a couple of chairs nearer
Yeah.
to the front. Okay.
No, so I'll pause, sir, because everyone should have a chair. It's not appropriate for people who... I'll carry on. Okay, the mulberry,
Yep.
just pick up, please, Mr. Alder's appendices and look at Appendix 5, which starts on PDF page 14 is the cover page, but 15 is the page we need to look at.
So, Mr. Sims, what page? Did you...
It's PDF 15, sir.
Thank you.
And we have the photograph of the mulberry tree, moving a 100-year black mulberry tree. And then in terms of the commentary, just ask you to look at the third column here and the first main paragraph there. This was considered by the General Manager to be a mature tree transplant. Do you see that?
Say that again?
It was considered by the General Manager, as it says there, to be a mature tree transplant. Do you see that?
Mature is not veteran.
I asked you the question about mature.
I can read, yes.
Yeah, and the answer to my question based on mature is that's correct, isn't it?
I can read, yes.
Good. And so we've got this is a mature tree.
Which is not a veteran.
Now, in terms of its age, around 100 years stated there, you don't dissent from that, do you?
A 100-year-old black mulberry tree.
Yeah. Around 100 years, you don't dissent from that, though, do you?
I don't disagree that it says 100 years old, but I also would add that it's a black mulberry tree.
And in terms of its...
And if I may add a caveat, mulberry trees live to up 500 years. So a 100-year-old mulberry tree that lives potentially to 500 years could likely be called mature, but it is not veteran and would not and does not exhibit veteran features like hollowing that makes it fragile.
And in terms of its physical size, the tree as we see there is no smaller than the trees which we are considering, the three particular trees which we are considering in this case. That's right, isn't it?
That is correct, but if you look at the picture, it is also standing in isolation. And I say again, it's a mulberry tree.
And
It's young.
And you don't doubt the success of the translocation of this mulberry tree, as we see in the photograph there and as Mr. Alder explained, do you?
I don't doubt the translocation of a relatively young tree of a different species with more vigorous root system. That was a single tree moved from one courtyard into another, so from one contained site to another contained site, was successful.
Now move please to Appendix 3 in Mr. Alder's proof of evidence, and I need you to look please specifically at page 9, PDF page 9. This is within the outline methodology. I want you to look at paragraph 1.6. Do you see paragraph 1.6?
Yes.
And you referred in your evidence in chief to dragging. And I
Yep.
think is that a reference to the word dragged in the final sentence of paragraph 1.6? Is that the quote you were trying to make?
Did you say 1 point? Oh, yeah. The tree will either be dragged on the floor, not on the root ball or trunk, or on a pipe road to their new location, or within the arc of a crane. So it's not within the arc of a crane, so by process of elimination, it's dragged.
Just bear with me.
Okay, bearing with you.
The first question is that the sentence you had in mind?
Yes.
That you would, good,
Yes.
right. So we're on an agreed basis. Let's look at 1.6, please, as a whole. After root pruning, the trees will be completely islanded and wrapped in air pot. At this stage, we've assumed the method of lifting will be a 50-ton excavator with a bespoke cut-and blade driven underneath the root ball. The tree will be secured to the blade, be lifted, carefully transported, and planted into a pre-excavated pit. Right, so that's what's proposed. Do you see that?
I can read, yes.
Yeah. There is lifting only from underneath, and no lifting occurs on the trunk. Our methodologies do not necessitate a metal bar through the trunk. The root ball is not affected by the lifting, transporting, or planting process. Understand?
Again, I can read, yes.
Yeah. So that's what they say they're going to do. Next sub-paragraph here. If this method is deemed unsuitable, either to the tree roots or the soil, a floor of pipe will be driven under. This will be secured over the root ball. So the first thing to say is a floor of pipes will be placed below the root ball. That's right, isn't it?
That is right.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen
I'm
that
not-
being done?
I'm asking you questions about the methodology here. This is what we're examining here. The trees will either be dragged on the floor, not the root ball or the trunk. So when it says dragged on the floor, the words you missed out from your quote, what it's referring to there is the floor of pipes that have been placed underneath the root ball. That's right, isn't it?
Again, technically correct.
Good.
However, I assume that the tree itself will be dragged with it, and even Mr. Holder put himself that is a very intrusive action for such fragile trees.
And if, with this alternative method, if that is the approach, the dragging is not done on either the root ball or the trunk, and it says so in terms. That's right, isn't it?
It does say that, but you are still dragging the tree.
And therefore, the evidence in chief that you gave was misleading because you omitted entirely the first sub-paragraph explaining the preferred approach using the excavator. That's right, isn't it? You made no reference to that.
You're using the excavator if it's within the arc of the crane.
No, that's not what it says. We've talked it through, we've taken it step by step. The primary method...
I
used
did not
the
quote the
excavator.
whole chapter.
No.
I will agree with you there.
You didn't quote the whole chapter. You chose to pick out the word dragged, and in so doing you were misleading, weren't you? Because you didn't fairly reflect what the primary method was. You jumped straight to what you thought would be the worst case. That's right, isn't it?
I don't believe I was misleading, because if you remove those 3 trees, which the inspectors have seen with their own eyes, they're fragile, hollowed, there's cavities under the trunk. You can see clean air below the tree and above the soil. That any kind of excavation, pipe drilling, root pruning will kill the tree.
I want to move to the other trees in the orchard now, please, the next subheading. Go to your proof of evidence, please. Look at page 5. And on page 5, it's the second paragraph which appears immediately above the figure. And you're referring here to apple trees. And the second sentence is the one we want to look at specifically. You say, while the applicant now acknowledges the veteran status they found in Bramleys, they continue to characterise the orchard as mostly younger, higher density trees, a claim contradicted by survey data and the Woodlands Trust's support for its protection. Survey data you refer to there, that hasn't been presented in the evidence, has it?
Well, actually, it's part of the county wildlife selection criteria, and the inspectors have asked for it multiple times.
That's the document you rely on, is it?
Yes, they sent me, as part of that selection criteria, a list of recommendations of what to do and so on and so forth. But the key thing is younger, if you're talking about misleading statements and words, would imply that they're young. But he's saying that it's younger than the founding tree. So they're younger than 101. So 100 is still younger than 101.
And the inspectors will look at this in due course, but when we look at that CWS document that you refer to, that is not a tree survey carried out in accordance with the British standard, is it?
Well, it's a tree survey carried out by the Wildlife Trust Officer.
Yeah.
I would say she follows the methodology.
Doesn't make any reference to following the British standard methodology, does it?
I don't have it in front of me.
Well, I'm not sure has it been loaded on yet? Let's see if we can work that out. If the programme officer can help us on that one. We got nods? Yeah.
Sorry, what document are we?
It's the document from the County Wildlife Site so that we were talking about this morning that you'd asked for some clarification on. I don't.
No, because there was still a question about that. I don't.
Fine.
Think
Well,
I've
if
been
it's not
sent.
arrived, then I can't ask the question. So that is just where we're up to then. Let's stick though, please, with your page 5. You then have a new subheading: Management, Conservation in Practice, not Theory. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, you tell us a little about some trees that you've planted in this paragraph. You say that you've planted 840 native hedgerow trees and you've added more than 150 fruit trees.
Yeah.
Those 840 native hedgerow trees, they are non-fruiting varieties, yes?
No.
What varieties are they?
Hazelnut, the wild cherry, rowan, there's some walnut, and there's also some hawthorn, blackthorn. I mean, they produce fruit, but perhaps not what you'd think of as orchard trees.
And you've planted them, as you say, as part of existing hedgerows or to create new hedgerows, is that right?
Hedgerows and also a wild larder. It's part of the Queen's Green Canopy.
That's fine, thank
And
you very
King's
much.
Hedges.
Now, if you stay with your proof of evidence, please. Move forward, please, to page 11. And here, at the bottom of page 11, you refer to more than 1,000 native hedgerow trees having been planted.
Yeah, because this supplemental note was quite a few months later than my original document, and we've had volunteers plant 2 more of the Woodland Trust packages, and each package is 420.
Right.
So that's 840 plus whatever the other number was.
And the same species, are they? As you
Yeah,
just read out?
a mix of what they call wild larder trees.
Right. And again, as part of existing or new hedgerows, yes?
Existing new hedgerows, also within the orchard itself, and what we are creating called a wild larder.
Right, thank you very much. And then finally on other trees in the orchard, the Anne Frank tree,
Yeah.
that was planted in 2025, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah. And it was planted outside of the order limits, correct?
correct.
Thank you.
May I add the caveat that the reason that we got it to plant is because of the fact that the original Bramleys was a site where Austrian Jews had gathered when they came to Cambridge. And I chose not to put the Anne Frank tree there because of the threat of the busway, but it does commemorate the site which is in the order boundary.
Now, in respect of your commercial operations, that's the next subheading. Can I ask you to go, please, to CD 113, which is the book of reference. And if you go to PDF page 57, and let me know when you're there.
I'm looking at something. I don't know if that's it.
It's
Oh, I'm
tell you
not
what,
looking at it now.
You're not quite there. We'll just get that page up for you.
113B.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, page 57, and at the bottom you should see 13142, number on the plan, yeah. And that tells us in the third column that the freehold owner is Houston Crest Properties Limited, yes?
That's correct.
And it identifies two leasehold interests, the first Blue Diamond Limited and the second Coated Orchard Limited. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And the first of those leasehold interests, Blue Diamond, is pretty obvious. That's the garden centre, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And Blue Diamond is a chain of garden centres. They've got a number in the southeast, for example, yes?
Yeah.
And we don't have an objection from Blue Diamond, and you don't purport to speak on their behalf, correct?
No.
With that in mind, can we put that document away and go back to your proof of evidence where you tell us a bit more about your business and look at PDF page 20, please? And in the middle of page 20, we've got the figure, and then the paragraph immediately below that figure. Look at the final sentence of that paragraph. Revenue comes not only from fruit sales, but also from the subletting of refurbished farm buildings to Blue Diamond Garden Centre, whose tenancy underpins the long-term maintenance of the site. Do you see that?
Yes.
And the fact that Blue Diamond Garden Centre's tenancy underpins the long-term maintenance of the site, that is the principal income on which you rely, isn't it?
That is a significant portion, yes.
Yeah. Now, in respect of the other part, the fruit sales, Womble Bond Dickinson also wrote to you about this, didn't they, on the 30th of January 2025, do you recall?
Not specifically, but if you say so.
Yeah. And they wrote to you and they asked you a series of questions about those fruit sales that you have made reference to, because you'd made reference to them in your earlier objection, and you responded to that email and you declined to provide the information requested. Do you recall that?
He asked for 3 years of our accounts.
That wasn't the only thing he asked for, was it? He asked you, for example, to explain about your fruit production and the levels of the fruit production.
He asked me to create a business plan and provide 3 years of accounts. Whilst I was trying to prepare for this public inquiry, I said I just don't have the time and I don't see the relevance.
So when we come to think about the commercial operation in terms of fruit sales, the position today is you've been asked for that information by Womble Bond Dickinson, but didn't provide it because you say you don't have the time, yes?
I haven't provided 3 years of my accounts.
No, but not just at the accounts.
Or provided a business plan for our future.
Not even
sales.
not even about the future. Details of current production, annual fruit production levels, not provided when it was requested, correct?
That, I didn't provide it, no.
Details were also requested of any collaboration between you and Blue Barrel, any agreements you have with Blue Barrel, again, declined to provide any, correct?
On commercial sensitivity, yes.
Yeah. And then when we come to look at the information that you have provided, which is just the documents we have here, we don't have any details about your current fruit production levels or practices, do we?
Not specifically, no.
No, and nor do we have anything other than your reference to the collaboration in broad terms with Blue Barrel in a couple of lines. Nothing about what sort of relationship you have with them, any contracts you have with them that you need to honour or anything of that nature, correct?
Correct, but if I could add the caveat, one, you've also got to engage with the real world. And part of whether something is practical to run as a business is got to be access. If you drive a busway through the middle of the orchard, then just operationally, We can't physically take a tractor up and down the roads. You can provide a gateway, but you also effectively create dozens of dead ends. So commercial viability doesn't necessarily mean huge profits. It means being able to operate on a business level that also allows us to do the conservation work to preserve the orchard as a traditional orchard.
So just so I've understood your last answer, when you talked about the viability of the orchard and commercial viability, you're actually referring to the conservation practices you want to undertake. Is that correct?
They're not independent of each other. If we can't afford to engage staff, if that staff member can't do his job, that's going to have an impact on whether we can carry on operating as a traditional orchard. Now, in terms of the partnership with Blue Barrel Cider, it's quite new. We're exploring some different avenues, and the story of the orchard is actually a really big part of it. So everybody in this room will be aware that marketing is a multi-billion-pound business. It's something that's very important when you're trying to bring a new product to market. And part of the marketability of the product that we're producing with Blue Barrel Cider, which we call the Origin Series, is the fact that it's an old orchard. We've revived heritage varieties. We've brought Malus seversi, which is the mother tree from Qinshan. That information and the story and the trees themselves and the orchard itself all forms part of the marketing strategy, and also our ability to bring the story, the product, the craft to a wider audience. And that would all be undermined if there's a concrete 3-lane bus road through the middle of the orchard and the veteran trees that won't survive translocation are dead.
And in respect of your link-up with the cider company, One World Bond Dickinson also asked you to specifically identify the new cider apple trees that you say you've been planted, as well as those heritage varieties, I should say, not heritage trees, those heritage varieties, which you rely on, and you declined to identify those trees, didn't you?
I said they're welcome to come and have a look. In fact, the inspectors, when they made their visit, I pointed them out. So, I mean, it's not like they don't exist.
You were asked to provide a plan showing where the trees were that you relied on for your cider business, your link-up, I should say, with the cider business, and you refused to do so, didn't you?
I said I didn't have the time to provide a detailed map with coordinates of the trees that we planted, but a representative from the applicant would be very welcome to come and have a look.
And so in terms of, well, I mean, that's not strictly true either, because every time we've had to get access, we've had to request it from you, and on a number of occasions we've had to serve notice on you in order to get in to do surveys, haven't we?
Well, that's also not strictly correct when you say every time.
I said a number of times, we've had to request it every time, and on a number of times we've had to serve notice on you in order to get access. That's right, isn't it?
That's not strictly correct, because I facilitated 174 visits. And it wasn't until 2020, when I was in the middle of trying to arrange my aunt's funeral via Zoom, that Mr. Baker said, "I'm very sympathetic to your plight. However, if you don't provide access," this is during a COVID period, "we will take you to court and ask for costs."
So where we are today, the information the inspectors have, they don't have information on your fruit production practices or the level of your fruit sales. They don't have information on your agreements with Blue Barrel Cider and any obligations you have there. We don't even have information on which trees are the relevant trees for the purpose of that collaboration. And without any of that evidence being presented, it's simply not possible for these inspectors to reach a reasoned conclusion that the effect of the busway would be to render your commercial operations unviable. That's correct, isn't it?
That's not correct. If you turn to page 8, there's a picture of Leo Jordan,
Sure.
our Origin Series Blue Sizer, Chef Daniel Clifford, who has a 2 Michelin star restaurant in the centre of Cambridge, who we're in talks with, actually he's agreed to put our cider on his tasting menu. And that is also the 2 bottles of cider, which is, oh yeah, you've got the picture there, Great British Food Awards finalist, which we will find out in a couple of days. So to say the inspectors have absolutely no idea of our burgeoning new products, I would say would be misleading.
Wasn't the question I put to you. Without the information on the fruit practices and the fruit production levels, without information on the collaboration agreement that you have and any obligations you have with this cider company, and without information about where the trees are on which you rely for that purpose, it is not possible for the inspectors to make a reasoned conclusion that your commercial operation will be rendered unviable by the busway. That's right, isn't it?
No, it is not right, because I credit with the inspectors with far more knowledge and ability to discern the effect on a business of run a busway through the orchard.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gaisley. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Ms Henderson. I don't think there is anybody else who supports the busway with questions for Ms Gaisley, but can I just check? No. Right, in that case, we'll take the mid-session break now. We'll resume at 11:25, and the inquiry is now adjourned. Thank you. Ms. Gaisley, I'll start off and just want to ask you about how things currently operate at Coton Orchard now, just that we have an understanding of what goes on there. Could you helpfully put in a plan of the orchard, which is core document 2940? Hopefully somebody will put that up on the screen. I think it shows the overall landholding of your company.
At Coton Orchard, yes.
Yes. Now, I think that includes the area that's occupied by the garden centre and its car park.
Yes.
So, could you just describe to me as best you can what is the operational area of the orchard itself as distinct from the garden centre, which we've heard is operated by as a Blue Diamond garden centre?
So it's the, I don't know, I mean, you can see which is the garden centre and the car park. So everything.
I can see the area
yeah.
of the car park just off the road.
Yeah. So the car, everything.
Going to the north, to the road.
Yeah, north of that. So that sort of section
Yes.
is garden centre. So that's sort of out of our daily operation.
So from the car park, everything up to the road.
Yeah, everything up to the road is leased to
Blue Diamond.
Blue Diamond. And so in the remaining portion, I have one permanent member of staff that helps with the, cutting the grass, tidying up, that kind of thing. And there's a barn there. And we used to do our own pressing and juicing. But now what we've done is that we're collaborating with other independent businesses, of which Blue Barrel is one,
Yes.
to try and develop some new products with our fruit. And we also have converted a part of that barn into like a classroom. So we host pruning workshops, grafting classes, that kind of thing, with the East of England Orchard project. So that's bookable online. And then the advantage that we get is that they sort of train up volunteers from the village and a nearby area to help us with pruning and management in a sort of conservation way, because the EOP people are knowledgeable in that area. And then the People's Trust for Endangered Species, Steve Oram, sort of helping us with identifying heritage varieties of apple trees. So we've been planting those in the sort of section behind the garden centre, but out of the order boundary. Used to be a vineyard, and what we're doing now is making that a chalk wildflower meadow. We've also added a pond there, and that's funded by Anglia Water. And that's also where we've produced, where we're creating a wild larder. And then the other thing that we did, as I mentioned before, is that we've brought Malus seversi, which is the...
Yes.
Yeah, so, it's basically, to try not to spend too much of your time going on about it, is we're thinking of methods of earning some income, but also encouraging public to interact with the site, so education. Yes. We've added an outdoor classroom in the area behind the garden centre in what we call the story orchard. So we can have groups like brownies, forestry school, that kind of thing come. So far they've been for free, but we're also looking into allowing individuals to make a charge for that kind of thing. So we just want to sort of add slowly to the sort of commercial side, but in a conservation way. For example, we also had 50 volunteers from AstraZeneca come as part of employee volunteer scheme. Yes. So we got paid per head for those members to come, which covers cost of engaging staff to oversight. But also it was very advantageous for us beyond the income, because they harvested about 1,000 kilos of pears, which will go into Perry pear making as part of another collaborative venture with Blue Barrel Cider. So these are not high return projects. However, they contribute to the conservation side of the orchard being self-sustainable. But at the moment, yes, it's the rental income allows us this luxury.
If we just go back to that plan for a moment and see the car park, to the southeast of the car park, I think, are the garden centre buildings.
Yes.
And then you mentioned that Cotton Orchard was doing something in the area behind the garden centre building. Well, do you mean to the south, going down towards the village, or to the further on to the southeast? Because I thought that was part of the garden centre.
Well, you can see that the squares
Yes.
of Garden Centre building. It's sort of within its own rectangle.
Yes.
There's a rectangle directly behind it.
When you say, which direction do you mean when you say behind? To the right?
To the right, yes. My north, south, east, and west is not correct.
Yeah.
To the right of it.
Right. So to the right of it, there's an area which extends upwards towards the road.
Would it be all right if I just point from there?
Yes.
Are we,
Are we looking at the same thing?
are we talking about this
So that there.
area here?
Yeah. That area there.
This area here?
Yes.
So that,
yeah.
we call that the Story Orchard. It's also meadow, and then here is now a pond, and we're developing a micro wetland.
Right. Yeah. Mr. Henderson needs to be clear as well. Yeah. The area that Ms. Gaisley's talking about, Mr. Henderson, is on the.
So it's outside the orchard.
It's the eastern boundary going up to the A road.
and that's where the pond is now.
Right, because I'd thought from your earlier answer that all of that part was with the garden centre. But,
All of this part here.
right, so it's up from the garden centre buildings up to the road, and there's a stretch
Like that.
to the east or to the right as you're looking at it. That's within the orchard.
That is the garden centre. Everything else is within
Yes.
the orchard. Yeah.
So the area that you've just identified, where the pond is,
there.
yeah, and going down so that you're level with the garden centre buildings. Is there any active fruit growing in there?
Yes, there's plenty of fruit trees. There's actually a row of sort of 80-year-old bramleys on there.
So there is orchard activity in that area.
Yes. So the chalk grassland is beside and underneath the trees.
And then to the south, going down from the garden centre car park to where your red boundary is at the bottom, towards the bottom of the plan. When you get
There,
when you
yeah.
when you get near to the
So these are the allotments.
when you get near to the allotments, that's the area that we walked through on our initial site visit.
Yeah, so you came
And
in there,
Yes, that's right.
and then we went through, so the old trees are about there.
That's right.
And then we kind of walked through the middle.
No, what?
Yep,
As we moved down to the right, as you call it, to the east,
that way, yes.
there was an area that was quite overgrown. That was scrubby.
At the end, so it's sort of there
Now,
and
I just
there.
want to identify that area on the
Yeah.
plan.
So it's there and then all of this. So this
So
is
it's
a
the area,
footpath.
going down to the road, and where are you? And where does it change from being an active orchard to the area that's overgrown?
From about sort of line there.
Yeah.
But
from,
it's actually,
from where it doglegs down to the road.
yeah, but actually as part of the, let me see if I can find it again, the county wildlife site, when they selected us and they gave us the
Yes.
documents, afterwards they made some recommendations. It's like, you're a good site, you tick, tick, tick these things. What other stuff you can do? And one of the other stuff was that so here, I think I pointed out to you when you came to visit, there's some very old trees. So although most of it is scrub, or looks like
Yeah.
scrub when you just look at it from the outside, there's actually, because we didn't walk down there, there's quite a lot of very old apple trees and plum trees within that area, because you've got what they call pioneer trees, so self-seeded oak, ash,
Yes.
poplar, that's risen above them. So one of the recommendations of the county wildlife, wildlife trust was that they see that there's some mature, very large mature old trees that are showing veteran features, because we haven't classified them as veteran trees, and that if we cleared the scrub and brambles from underneath them and allowed light in, that would actually extend their life. So at the moment, there's sort of a transition to woodland, akin to what the Madingley Wood SSSI is, because we were all part of one landscape. So when you don't actively cut back, trees, that self-seeding trees, that's what it will sort of revert back to. It's an echo of what it was. So I know a lot of references to scrub and overgrown. It just sounds a little bit negative, but actually scrubland is very valuable. And the thing about the orchard, I mean, old trees, as was explained, fruit trees have this thing called early senescence, so they get really old very quick. So for an oak to have a certain ecological value, it might take 300 years. Yeah. But for an apple tree, it might happen in about 80. So one of the benefits of this final section, where we've got these really old trees, but also self-seeded oak, like a peduncular oak. So if I don't know whether you look very closely, because some of them have already been cleared. So we've got about 20 trees there that have had the understory sort of moved back. But then beyond that, you've still got more trees, and you've got things like peduncular oak that are like 30 years old as opposed to hundreds of years old. But because they're side by side with these veteran apple trees, it provides a kind of good enough habitat, because we don't have a lot of ancient woodlands. And this good enough is why we've got sort of species like the dark crimson underwing, and other sort of mosses and lichens that has appeared in the reports and so forth, that wouldn't normally be found in an orchard, but because habitats are disappearing, we're not only protecting species that could only be found in, say, a traditional orchard, we're also actually serving as one of the last resorts for species that rely on other very valued habitats. So I don't want to go too much into it, but just try to explain that scrub isn't the sort of negative thing.
You're explaining that area at the eastern end of the landholding has habitat value.
Yes, exactly.
I think we understand that point.
Okay.
Is there, within that area,
yes,
is there any commercial orchard activity at all, or is it just all simply left because of its habitat value?
Well, as I said, the line of trees, which is actually just because that's the hard standing. Do you remember there was like
the square on the plan?
There, the square on the plan.
Yes.
So just behind that was that first row of cleared trees.
Yes.
And they're quite old bramleys as well. And this year we have picked fruit from there for the Origins blend, because they are also equal.
I'm taking it from what you've said, that where the dogleg is behind the curtilage of the houses on the road to the south, that's where the scrub area starts to the east of that.
Yes.
Or sorry, I had a different interpretation. Does the scrub area start to the east of the hard stand rather than the dogleg?
Well, it's in the dogleg as well, but it's like the whole from that line to about there,
further over.
or that way. I mean, the first section of it's not like just a straight line, if you see what I mean. It's kind of a slow.
We'll see that again when we visit the site again. But you're saying just a short distance beyond the hard standing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to get a clear idea of where the active orchard was. I think you said that the orchard was acquired in 1996.
Yes.
When you opened your remarks. When it was acquired, was the garden centre there?
It wasn't the garden centre that's there now. There was a small farm shop.
So was it predominantly an orchard with a farm shop attached?
It was, well, you can see the pictures on page 7 of my proof, actually. That's what was there before, when my dad bought it.
That shows some buildings, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And what's happened to the buildings?
Well,
I just want to understand whether it was predominantly an orchard within the land you bought in 1996.
It was actually not vastly different in what they were doing to what it is now. I mean, there was more fruit trees and they were producing more juice. but they were already diversifying, I guess is what you call it. They had, everything was much smaller. So they had a small farm shop, they had a, small cafe, where now it is more modern and on a larger scale.
But was the growing activity, the agricultural activity, the orchard?
Yes.
Right. And when the garden centre came along, was the decision to diversify further and introduce the garden centre, was that done because of viability?
Well, actually, initially, it was chicken and egg, really. We sort of came into possession of these big buildings, and all the roofs were asbestos, and my family have a particular concern because we lost a member to mesothelioma. So my dad wanted to remove the asbestos, refurbish the buildings, and of course you need to have an objective in order to make that a sensible thing to do. And I wasn't interested in running it as a
Yes.
garden centre, so we were seeking to get it to a state where we could find a tenant to do that job.
Yes. But was the impetus to do that because the traditional orchard was not viable by itself?
In part, yes. I think my dad was willing to support it out of his own funds, and I was less so.
And is that the position would that position remain true today? You've explained that there are commercial ventures, you've got partners and potential partners lined up, but without that other income stream, would it be a viable operation?
If we treated it as an independent cost centre, then no, it wouldn't be viable without the rental income.
Yeah.
But it is a bit of a pet project for my father.
Yes. How many staff?
I only have one full-time
on the orchard.
at the orchard, yeah. So we rely on a lot of part-time and volunteers.
So you've got one full-time. How many part-time?
It varies. It usually...
Seasonally, I imagine.
Seasonal, yeah.
At
5 or 6.
At the most?
That we'd pay for, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, that's helpful. I just want to ask you also about the translocation.
Yes.
I think I've read in the applicant's information that when considering where the 3 veteran trees could be moved to, I think 2 possibilities were looked at. One of which was, I think one's Rectory Farm,
Yes.
close to the motorway, but one possibility was within your site. Now, have you a location where these trees could go to?
I think I'm so firmly in the belief that if you dig them up, they wouldn't survive.
I understand that entirely. You've made that very clear this morning.
Okay.
Put that to one side.
Right.
What might happen to them on the way, or your views about their vulnerability. But if you were asked to relocate them within the Coton Orchard site, could you do that? Have you space?
The thing is, as you've seen where they were, they've got trees
Yes.
beside them. So no to immediately beside them, because we've already, where there's dead stumps, we've actually put grafted Bramley seedlings from those trees
Yes.
to be succession trees. So you wouldn't dig up what is established in succession in order to move the tree. So it would have to be a site further into the orchard. And as the applicant made such a big deal about them being a certain distance away from other trees, what we've done actually, every new tree that we've added in the last couple of years has been on what we call M25 or MM111 rootstock, which is vigorous or very vigorous, meaning they can eventually get to large sizes, which is one of the indicators of a traditional orchard. So if we move those trees, you would have to move one of the succession trees. So if gun to my head, I would be able to find space, but is that a sensible thing to do?
Yes, so you could find space if you had to, but you
Gun to
doubt-
my head, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Ms. Gaisley.
Excuse, can I just start off, just clarify something? In one of the answers, Mr. Henderson was asking you, and there was an exchange about access to the property. You mentioned, I think, the figure of 174 visits.
Yeah.
Were you suggesting, is that the applicant has visited your site 174 times?
In the last 10 years, yeah.
So that's over a 10-year
Yeah.
period?
They only had to threaten me with court twice.
In some of your written evidence, you talked about security and the orchard. Can you just explain, in terms of the current, I'm not asking you to divulge anything about your security arrangements, in terms of current existing access and enclosure around the orchard, am I right in thinking, is it entirely enclosed at the
Yes.
moment?
Yes.
And when we visited the site, we went through a gate close to the
Cambridge
garden
Road.
centre, and I think also we spotted a gate when we were walking along the footpath to the south.
Yeah, that would be the rear gate.
And so I'm just trying to understand what are the other sort of access points you've got?
That's it. So from Cambridge Road, there's a new metal gate that's been installed by Blue Diamond that comes off Cambridge Road into their car park. And then you'd have to go through their car park and then through another metal fence where you came in for the the site visit. So that's our primary access. And then at the rear of the site, there is what used to be the farm gate, and that comes off of the footpath. The main farm gate, because we were worried about, it doesn't matter anyway, there were some security issues, so we've actually put we blocked the large gate at the back, so there's a pedestrian gate off the footpath, and that's how we access the site out of garden centre hours. So, for example, if we were having a bat visit or whatever, they'd come in through there.
Yeah, so out of hours, you get access as a pedestrian from the
Pedestrian
footpath.
only, yeah.
And so, but in terms of vehicle access, you say that's although there's a gate that's currently blocked, is that right?
Yeah, so only vehicular access would be through the Blue Diamond car park.
Thank you. If the proposed scheme goes ahead, again, you've mentioned concerns about security. What again, sort of putting aside everything else, and I understand you don't want to see the scheme go ahead, but if the scheme go ahead, what would you need to do in terms of enclosures and gates?
Well, I think at a minimum we'd have to have fencing on both sides of the busway, because we wouldn't want people roaming off the busway onto our site. Especially, I mean, am I allowed to ask a question? I'm not very clear on what the guided system is, because when it started it was curb guided, maybe optical. So I don't know if that's been defined, but if my understanding is correct, it's now optical guided, which would be like a tarmac road.
That's what the applicants have said, yes.
Yeah. Is that now defined in the order, or is it just a maybe?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but...
Anyway, if it becomes just a road, that means it's even more of a concern for us, because my family's actually been broken into multiple times, including this past June, and previously my parents have suffered life-changing injuries, and they escaped to a car and drove away down Cambridge Road. So if you've got a road that could potentially allow a vehicle to drive down unhindered, because unlike curb guided, you don't have to have a specialist vehicle to go down it, then the fencing becomes even more important.
Thank you. In terms of the commercial sort of fruit growing operation, you've already explained about the sort of the effect of, I think, of severance. I think there is a proposal for a crossing point. You did also mention about, I think, vehicles, tractors moving on the north-south along the rows of trees.
Yeah.
Can you actually just say a bit more about what if the scheme went ahead, what would the impact be on the commercial operation? Yeah, sorry. In terms of the actual physical sort of management of commercial growing on the both the land that would be to the north and the south of the route.
Well, when you look at it on a map, like just a plain map without the trees and without the what you can see when you came on the site visit, for example, and you have, a single access, or I think on the most recent one, they've put 2 crossing points. You look at a plain map and you think, oh, well, you can just cross there and drive round on each side. But the reality is these north-south rows were planted, decades, if not a century ago. So unlike a field where you can change the orientation of the planting, these are pretty established. So any vehicle, like we've got a gator, one of these small vehicles that can pull in a ton. So we would take the bowsers with it, water. So this summer it's been really important because we haven't had...
So when you say gator, is that like a sort of small 4x4?
Ish, yeah. A sort of farm utility vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
That pulls a bowser so that we can water the trees and so forth. And then we've also got a Massey Ferguson tractor that pulls a large specialist mower for orchards, which cannot be easily reversed. So, you saw the rows for yourself. If you're going down, they just about fit down each one of those rows because that's what it's designed for. And then when it reached at either end of the orchard, so on the 2 boundaries, there's quite, you came down the drive of what we did. We went back up the drive of one of them. So it's quite a large area either side at the 2 boundaries. So what the vehicles do is you go down one, round the end, and come back. But if you put a line through the middle, all those avenues become dead ends. So I think that's sort of self-explanatory why that's a problem.
And I think one of the things that you mentioned about the characteristic of a traditional orchard was the sort of the generous spacing between trees. Would that actually assist in accessibility for vehicles?
Well, generous spacing is still talking, 6-7 meters, which is not a lot if you can't. It's not enough for the tractor to turn round in, put it that way. So what we're doing is we're adding these larger rootstock trees as we go, but the trees that exist there, so all the saproxyllic beetles that depends on the deadwood habitat. So what we're allowing to do is, as the sort of shorter, less vigorous rootstock trees die, we're leaving them where they are, so that the deadwood habitat can carry on, and then these new trees, but it will take a decade, it'll probably outlive me. It'll take a long time for them to reach the sort of size to then take over in succession the biodiversity value of these smaller trees. So yes, eventually the avenues will start to get wider, but in the interim, we wouldn't be able to manage those trees and water them and tend to them and all these things because they'll be down multiple dead-end avenues.
And in terms of, you've talked about watering, and you mentioned you use the gator, and for grass cutting, a tractor. In terms of cropping, is that mechanised or is that done by hand?
It's done by hand, but we use things like the gator to pull large apple boxes, but like a trailer. So you pick your fruit and you pour it in the trailer. So they need to get up and down. Otherwise, each fruit picker with their basket would have to walk all the way back up the avenue to put it in a box somewhere else, which is, impractical.
Understood, thank you. I think that's probably just covered the questions I had in terms of clarification. Yes, thank you, Ms. Gacy.
Thank you.
Oh, good, thank you. I won't say it's been a pleasure.
And when this case is cleared away, we'll be hearing evidence from Mr. Rob Sadler next. I understand Mr. Sadler's just popped down to the room, so we'll just give him a couple of minutes before we resume. Good morning, Mr. Sadler. It's just about still morning. We've got the proof that you were originally submitted. I'm not sure whether you were here first thing when we resumed the inquiry this morning, but if you were, you'll know that we've accepted your speaking notes, which relate to your proof. Could you start by just introducing yourself? Not everybody may have access to what you've put in subsequently. Just remind us who you are, who you're speaking on behalf of, and then if you could go through the speaking notes that you've submitted. And then I've no doubt there'll be some questions for you.
Firstly, is the microphone working? Yeah. Yeah. On behalf of my family.
Just sorry, Mr. Sadler. I think there might be an issue with the microphone. Just bear with us.
Morning. I have to repeat that. Good morning, inspectors. My name is Rob Sadler, and I appear on behalf of my family, J and WR Sadler, as directly affected landowners. I want to be clear. I am not presenting new technical evidence today. These are straightforward observations based on public information and the applicant's own material. Until this inquiry, we, as directly affected landowners, were not given sufficient information needed to comment in detail. If we had been meaningfully consulted at an early stage, many of the concerns could and should have been raised then. It is for that reason my oral summary is now more comprehensive. At the outset, our concern was with the off-road section, but having now heard the applicant's evidence, it has become increasingly difficult to see how the scheme as a whole delivers for Cambourne residents. That broader concern has only become clear through the inquiry process itself. This process has been a huge ordeal on my family, and we are learning as we go. By contrast, the applicant is represented by professionals whose sole focus is major infrastructure projects with a significant budget. Before I begin, I'd like to correct, or at the very least question, a statement that was made by Mr. Baker on Tuesday, 23rd of September 2025, 4 days after he had given his proof of evidence. On that morning, Mr. Cameron asked him a prepared question about the Cambourne to Cambridge Greenways. Mr. Baker suggested that no agreement had been reached between the GCP and J and WR Sadler in relation to potential land acquisition for the Cambourne to Cambridge Greenways. Following the advice from the inspectors, I was asked to raise this point today. On the 12th of December 2024, I wrote to Mr. Jonathan Camp, Senior Project Manager for the GCP Greenways project. Jonathan, I haven't received any dates from you to meet. Can I assume you are exploring options to keep the Greenway on the existing bridleway? An update would be great, and I remain keen to meet. 3 days later, Mr. Camp replied, We are exploring what can be achieved by bringing the Greenways forward on the existing bridleway. Therefore, I don't think there is a need for us to meet at this moment in time. I responded the same day, that is reassuring news, and thanked him for the update. I have heard nothing further in the 10 months since from the GCP in connection with the Greenways project. As the email shows, I have actively chased this issue in a constructive way, and the GCP confirmed in writing that no land was required. At the time, Mr. Baker's statement may have given a misleading impression of our family's approach. The irony is that the Cambourne to Cambridge Greenway already exists as a continuous path into the city, including a pedestrian bridge over the M11, and this has been there for years. The GCP's plan is essentially to tarmac and widen what is already there, but then to leave the corridor and push into open countryside at the bottom of our field, the very same field as the proposed C2C busway. There are further inaccuracies. A second example arises in the applicant's record of engagement that was sent to me on the 30th of July 2025. It records an entry for the 7th of September 2023 described as email from R. Sadler advising he will now act for family, change of representation. That entry is wholly incorrect and without foundation. There was no correspondence from me on that date, or at any other time, in those terms or in that nature. No such email was ever sent. Further lack of proper engagement. In an email dated 10th of October 2024, the applicant admitted they had only met the landowner twice before April 2024. In reality, these were informal visits, not structured or minuted meetings where key concerns could be properly discussed. The same email revealed that the route alignment had been fixed since March 2023, in effect amounting to a design freeze. While the applicant describes this as not a formal design freeze, they also confirmed it did not allow for a full realignment of the scheme. By any reasonable definition, that was a freeze on meaningful change, and we were not made formally aware until the 10th of October 2024. That very same email suggested that the 4 public consultations held between 2015 and 2021 were an adequate substitute for direct engagement with the landowner. Public exhibitions or general consultations cannot replace proper, formal dialogue with those whose land is subject to compulsory purchase. By the applicant's own record, the first substantive meeting with the landowners took place in April 2024, by which time key design decisions were already fixed. No early notification letter was ever received to explain the scheme, the statutory process, or the landowner's rights. No adequate maps or route drawings were provided in the early years. The material that we did receive was limited, difficult to interpret, and lacking in clarity. Indeed, at the inquiry hearing last month, the inspectors themselves required 30 to 40 minutes to understand the applicant's plans, and that was with Mr. Cameron assisting them. The applicant must also demonstrate that the scheme complies with relevant equality and accessibility duties. Under Section 149 of the Equalities Act 2010, all public authorities and anyone exercising public functions, including as transport scheme promoter, must have due regard to the need to eliminate discrimination and advance equality of opportunity. This duty applies at every stage of a project, including consultation and early design. There has been no consultation with the landowner, who is registered disabled. Despite over a decade, the applicant is unable to provide a single agenda, minutes, or file notes prior to April 2024, relating or to its dealings with the landowner. Taken together, this shows the applicant failed to carry out the early and meaningful engagement with the landowner before seeking compulsory purchase.
Mr. Sadler, are you adding there to what you've submitted?
I think there was one. I think it's taken from my proof, that line.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Direct impacts on our farm. The busway would cut directly through the centre of our farm, severing every field. The land is farmed north to south, so the busway would form a complete east-west barrier. On an average day, 20 to 30 separate movements cross the track beside the family burial site, as highlighted during the inspector's initial visit. These include tractors, sprayers, staff, visitors, children, grandchildren, and my mother, who is disabled. At peak periods such as harvest, the number is higher. The applicant proposes buses running at up to 55 miles an hour, yet there has been no meaningful discussion about how unencumbered and safe access will be maintained. Again, plans have been hard to read and no proper explanation given. In reality, movements may occur where they are most practical along the route, as they already do across highways nationwide for farming activities and on the existing guided busway. Has this been considered on the scheme's risk register? The family burial site. This scheme also affects something of the deepest personal significance, the burial site where my grandparents' ashes were interred in 1992. The applicant has long been aware of its presence, yet the issue was repeatedly downplayed. Since April 2024, I have raised it several times, and each time I was assured the burial site did not fall within the busway. Unsatisfied, I requested a site meeting. On the 26th of July 2024, the applicant marked out the full working width of the busway, including the road, maintenance track, swale, and landscaping bunds. The corridor was approximately 45 metres wide. It became apparent the ashes lie 7 metres within the proposed compulsory acquisition boundary. Mr. Baker acknowledged this, then went on to explain that by saying the ashes were not within the busway, he was in fact only referring to the narrow 7.3 metre tarmac strip for buses only. In writing on the 6th of August 2020...
Sorry, Mr. Sadler, sorry to interrupt. Do you mean 7.3? Because you've got a different dimension than what you've put.
I think it's either 7.3 or 7.4.
Right, okay, but you're saying 7.3 to us this morning.
I'll say, correction, 7.4. Okay. The ashes... Sorry, in writing on the 6th of August 2024, he went on to confirm the ashes will not be under the busway. To be clear, the landscaping either side of the busway is not the actual busway. My family, particularly my parents, found the response disingenuous. It minimised the impact by ignoring the reality that the whole 45-metre corridor would be compulsorily acquired. Responsibility for relocating the ashes was placed on my elderly parents. This is insensitive and would never have arisen if proper care and consultation had been exercised from the outset. I do not use the word disingenuous lightly. It reflects how my family experienced the applicant's response and the distress caused. Safety and emergency response. Experience on the existing Cambridgeshire guided busway already shows the risks. To my understanding, dozens of incidents of vehicles illegally entering the track have been officially recorded in recent years. Many involve stolen vehicles. The Health and Safety Executive has already prosecuted the County Council, and further fencing has recently been approved to address continuing problems. The new section proposed west of the city between Cambridge Road Coton and Cambourne Long Road would be approximately 2 kilometres long of smooth tarmac, dead straight, with no intersections, no fencing, no lighting, and no calming measures. To a lay person, it has the distinct characteristics of a racetrack rather than a public transport corridor. The applicant suggests barriers could be added later if misuse becomes a problem. In my view, misuse is not a remote risk. It is likely from day one, as supported by incidents already along other busways. These risks should also appear explicitly in the scheme's risk register. Emergency response is also a concern and confusing. The parallel path is designated as a maintenance and emergency access route shared with cyclists and pedestrians. Yet, it is only 3.5 metres wide. Fire engines or ambulances may struggle to travel at speed, especially when sharing with cyclists and pedestrians. In wet, dark winter conditions, emergency vehicles and crew would face a swale that will be waterlogged for the majority of the year. And in some of the applicant's illustrations, for example, back crossing points, there appears to be soil bunds with dense planting to cross before accessing the busway. There are also landowner security concerns. If the scheme proceeds, it is not unreasonable to require on both sides, within the outer landscaping bunds of the land to be acquired, 2-metre high soil bunds, a deep ditch, hedgerow, and a 5-bar post and rail fence or similar to prevent unwanted criminal access. Security has been raised previously as an issue, but we have not been given the opportunity to discuss the detail with the applicant or receive any proposals. This should be reflected in the landscape and visual impact assessment. I have a paragraph to add. To add further, the applicant appears to have given no or little consideration to the drainage implications of severing the existing farmland across Madingley Hill from Cambourne Long Road and Cambridge Road Coton in particular. The land immediately north of the proposed busway comprises of approximately 300 acres running up to the A1303. It lies all on higher ground to the busway, and it will drain, as we heard from and is well drained. And as we heard from Mr. Peck last month, how important drainage is to farming. The proposed alignment would effectively sever the entire drainage system, preventing surface and field runoff water from draining north to south. In such circumstances, the extensive amount of water will be directed towards the busway and the swales in particular along the busway. Even if the applicant argues this is not its intended purpose of the swales, the fact remains that I cannot find evidence of any assessment by the applicant. Just moving on to section B, purpose versus delivery. When the C2C scheme was first conceived, its stated purpose was to connect Cambourne residents with jobs and education in Cambridge. That remains the right ambition. I do not believe the GCP has ever provided a breakdown of destinations for users wishing to travel from Cambourne, and this point has been made previously by Mr. Lee in his proof of evidence. Conversely, I cannot find a travel to work survey or similar for the West Cambridge site. All other science and business parks in the Cambridge area will have one and regularly review it to support initiatives such as car sharing, cycle provisions, and private bus services paid for by the parks and campuses. Unlike the proposed Scotland Farm Park and Ride, all existing park and ride sites are located either within Cambridge city boundary or just on its edge. Scotland Farm sits much further out by comparison. Staff travelling to West Cambridge site already have Madingley Road Park and Ride opposite, within a short walking distance. Residents of Cambourne and Bourne Airfield will board the bus locally. Longer distance travellers will continue on the £1.5 billion upgraded A14 and will use Milton Park and Ride instead. I tested this myself. Scotland Farm to Milton Park and Ride along the A428/A14 took approximately 7 minutes, without exceeding 65 miles an hour on the dual carriageways. The bus service from Milton Park and Ride to the city centre is tabled at between 15 and 20 minutes. Using the new bus priority corridors and segregated cycleways along Milton Road, that gives a total journey time of approximately 25 to 35 minutes, compared with the alternative of around 40 to 45 minutes using C2C route from Scotland Farm Park and Ride, with, of course, the added risk of longer onward times once the buses reach Grange Road, particularly peak times and weekends. In fact, from Scotland Farm, you could drive and park at any of the other park and rides, Milton, Madingley Road, Newmarket Road, or Trumpington, and regularly reach the city more quickly, or, in the worst case, in a similar time to C2C. Even Babraham Road, which is located on the far side of Cambridge, is broadly comparable. Furthermore, the biomedical campus will be served by a new park and ride to the southwest of the city, opening next year and providing 12 buses per hour to the campus. It would be quicker to drive directly to this park and ride from Scotland Farm rather than drive to Scotland Farm and take a bus all the way to the biomedical campus. Equally, travelling along the A428 and A14 to Cambridge North and continuing by train through to the biomedical campus would be faster and more direct than C2C. In reality, it is difficult to see who would use Scotland Farm Park and Ride. During questioning last week, Mr. Cameron put forward a hypothetical scenario to Mr. Lee concerning large numbers of tourists that might use the park and ride. I find this unlikely, as most tourists will use one of the existing, more conveniently located park and rides. Less time on the bus, quicker overall journey times. The striking fact is that the public has already paid for infrastructure that achieves the same goal faster, cheaper, more reliable and sooner. The £1.5 billion A14 upgrade completed in 2020 has significantly reduced congestion and improved reliability on the approach to Cambridge. Cambridge North Station opened in 2017 with a direct 4 to 5 minute rail link into Cambridge. It's now called Cambridge Central Station. Within a couple of months, Cambridge South will also open at the biomedical campus, further strengthening direct rail connectivity. From Cambourne, buses could simply run along the A428 dual carriageway, merge onto the A14 3-lane dual carriageway to motorway standard, after a mile or so exit at the Histon Junction and join the guided busway at Orchard Park. From there, buses would continue on the existing segregated traffic-free infrastructure with dedicated stops at 3 major destinations: education, employment and rail. The viability of this corridor is not hypothetical. The 905 Bedford-Cambridge service used it for a period, and in 2022, Stagecoach considered moving the City 4 service onto the same alignment, before instead accepting a subsidy to keep it on the existing path. I do not believe the applicant has explained why such a direct and proven route is not reflected in their assessments. Using the existing alignment, a Cambourne to Cambridge journey would take approximately 30 to 35 minutes with greater certainty, compared with the applicant's 45-minute projection for C2C, which remains uncertain beyond Grange Road. This is not about proposing another alternative route. This is about using infrastructure that already exists and which the public has already paid for. Key intimate destinations. C2C misses the most important education and employment sites. The existing northern route already serves them directly via the segregated busway. Stop 1, Cambridge Regional College, around 10,000 registered students, the city's largest further education provider. The C2C route does not serve it at all. Stop 2, North Cambridge Employment Cluster, Cambridge Science Park, St John's Innovation Park, Cambridge Business Park, and the expanding developments around Cambridge North Station already provide well over 3 million square feet of workspace, with projections of up to 25,000 jobs in the coming years. Stop 3, Cambridge North Station. This provides direct onward rail services to Cambridge Central and within a couple of months to Cambridge South, serving the biomedical campus, Europe's largest life science and healthcare cluster. There is also the option for buses to continue via Milton Road and Histon Road along the bus priority corridors into the city. These works completed earlier this year at an estimated cost of £32 million. The land to the west of Cambridge, encompassing both the West Cambridge site and Eddington, forms part of a single university-led development area conceived and delivered by the University of Cambridge. Madingley Road forms the spine road, with the university's owned Madingley Road Park and Ride between the two sites acting as a shared transport gateway. Unlike all of Cambridge's commercial and science parks, which compete for tenants and generate large commuter flows, the West Cambridge site is an academic university campus with only a handful of external commercial occupants. I've added a paragraph. The university states that its purpose is to provide an academic and research environment for the university's physical science-based faculties, taken from their website, comprising of academic departments, research institutes, and commercial research. The latter, commercial, meaning university-led collaboration, not open or third-party commercial tenancy. The Estates Division reinforces this description: a world-class, sustainable and integrated campus that fosters collaboration between departments, institutes and industry partners within a university-controlled academic setting. Accordingly, the West Cambridge site will continue to function as a university research campus, not as an open commercial business park. Any industry presence exists only through joint research partnerships embedded in the university's estate strategy. Eddington provides the mixed-use residential element, an urban quarter including schools, retail and community facilities, including 1,500 homes for university and college key workers at subsidised rents and purpose-built accommodation for about 2,000 postgraduates. This key worker housing replaces the conventional affordable element of a mixed-use development and is reserved for university employees only. This integrated approach, locating staff housing alongside the university's main academic sites, was deliberately intended to align housing with employment and thereby minimising the need for university staff to commute from outlying settlements. As a result, daily commuting from Cambourne to West Cambridge site is likely to be limited, in contrast with the significant commuting flows seen into Cambridge Regional College, Cambridge Science Park, CB1 and the Biomedical Campus. I also want to acknowledge the alternative promoted by Cambridge Past, Present and Future, which would keep buses on the existing A1303 corridor rather than building on entirely new off-road alignment. Their approach reflects the same principle I have been making throughout, that improvements should be made to existing infrastructure rather than forcing a brand new route through the Greenbelt. If there is a case for linking Cambourne to West Cambridge, this should be achieved on road at far lower cost, consistent with the CPPF approach. Such an option would also provide, this is important, such an option would also avoid impacts on Coat and Orchard and address many of the concerns raised by local objectors. I've added another paragraph, sir. Two key considerations along this corridor are Madingley Wood and the American Military Cemetery, a Grade 1 listed heritage site of the highest importance. Both deserve the utmost respect and protection. However, careful alignment and landscaping could readily mitigate an effect on Madingley Wood, and my family has already indicated our willingness to surrender land along the northern edge of our holding beside the A1303 to help achieve that. With that in place, impacts on Madingley Wood can be effectively avoided. I've got a personal paragraph to now add about the American Cemetery. As someone who has lived and worked opposite the American Cemetery for over 50 years, I have grown up with a deep appreciation for what it represents. Last year, I had the privilege of taking part in a short sponsored walk from Churchill College to the cemetery via the Coton footpath, accompanied by the BBC National TV and my good friend, Squadron Leader Colin Bell, a British Second World War veteran now aged 104, who completed 30 mosquito missions over Germany. We were joined by Randolph Churchill, great-grandson of Sir Winston, and it was a humbling reminder of the place the cemetery holds in both our nations' shared history. Over the years, I've come to know many of the superintendents who have cared for the cemetery, which is not only a Grade 1 memorial, but also a museum and a visitor centre. When I was a boy, my parents ran a small bed and breakfast at the farm, and it was common for us to welcome families visiting their fallen loved ones, often brothers and sisters making the journey to pay their respects. As time has passed, those numbers have naturally declined, but the cemetery's role as a place of learning, remembrance, and quiet reflection remains as important as ever. In that spirit, I can think of nothing more fitting or respectful than a carefully designed pedestrian and cycle route passing its entrance, encouraging families, school groups, and visitors to pause, reflect, and appreciate the history preserved there. Far from detracting from the cemetery setting, such a route would honour its continuing purpose: remembrance, education, and a connection between generations. I have a conclusion, but I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Sadler. Is it going to be Mr. Cameron or Mr. Okay, Mr. Cameron.
May I just add a couple of words, just in terms of my experience, or I think it might help, or if you prefer, I wouldn't do that. That's up to you.
No, Mr. Sadler, you must take the opportunity to say what you want in terms of your objection to the scheme.
Okay, just so in terms of my involvement and my awareness of the university, I've worked in Cambridge for the last 30 years on the property side, and when I started up my new business 4 years ago, Matthews and Sadler, the other half, Matthews, is Dr. Jason Matthews, and he is the ex-director, head of estates and strategy for the University of Cambridge, and one of his projects was all the projects was obviously Eddington and the Cambridge West site, so we do have quite a lot of experience in that. The other person who works with us is a consultant, which is Professor Phil Armendinger. He, again, is with Cambridge University, and he was the university's person that sat on the GCP board for the university. I should also declare, just for complete transparency, that as I am a developer, we are promoting a scheme south of Cambridge, which has planning, and we'll be starting work on that very shortly. And colleagues of the gentleman on my left, Zach Simons, is assisting us with that work. And I've also worked previously with Neil King in terms of a project in Hinxton, where I was brought on board as the expert for Cambridge Life Science and Innovation property. So I just thought that might be helpful to the...
Okay, thanks, Mr. Sadler. Mr. Cameron, please.
Actually, sorry, you mentioned your colleague, Professor Armendinger.
Yeah.
You said he sat on the GCP board. Does that mean he's not anymore?
No, so he was the university representative on the GCP board, and he's no longer on there.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Sadler.
Morning.
That
Afternoon.
starts us off in the right place, as it were, to find out the basis on which you're here. So I note from the objection, which is objection 102, that the objector is your father, Mr. John Sadler. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's correct. A bit like Anna. Yeah, someone has to put their name at the bottom of the letter. The land is owned, that's set to be compulsory acquired by J and W.R. Sadler, which is my mum and dad. I own land which is Cromley Farmhouse, which is along Madingley Road.
We know it's in your appendices. Should we
Yep.
try and keep
So,
it concise
yeah.
at the moment, which is a point I'm about to ask you about. So objection made by John Sadler as landowner, and that's and you say in your proof that you submit evidence on behalf of your family, paragraph 6 of your proof, correct? You also say that you are a chartered surveyor, and can we just, and you've referred to your experience, and can we just turn to Mr. Franklin's rebuttal appendices, please? Hopefully we're not going to go to too many documents and somebody will get it for you. So it's CD 2601W75, snappy title. And we need to go to page 347, please.
It's a lot of pages.
Well, if you'll find it, should come up here. You're on
Yeah,
page.
I think this young man's
Good.
assisting.
Right. So we'll see there at the bottom of page 347, paragraph 9. Sorry. I'm going to have to, I can't refer to the long number every single time. Appendices 2601 W75. When we get there, it'll be a disappointment.
Mr. Cameron, sorry, just remind me of the page number, please.
347.
Thank you.
We got that? I can't see what's on the screen.
Yeah. These are the minutes, aren't they?
Good. Well, just wait for the question, please.
Yep.
Paragraph 9, professional representation. RS confirmed that he would act on behalf of his parents as a chartered surveyor with land assembly experience. You appear today as a witness. are you appearing as a chartered surveyor today?
So,
Well, can you just answer the question,
so
please?
can you repeat the question?
Yes.
I'm here to represent the family.
Yeah. And are you appearing as a chartered surveyor?
No,
So you're here as a member of the family, not as a chartered surveyor.
correct,
So you're not giving expert evidence.
correct.
I've been given another one of these, so perhaps I'm going to try and.
Well,
use
whilst we're on this particular
Yes.
document, I think it's just important to note that these minutes were never signed off.
Right.
And if we could just flip up the page, please, to the first page. Do we not have the full minutes? Copy of the full minutes?
346 is the first page.
Yeah. So these were a first draft of minutes. And unfortunately, the applicant couldn't even get the Christian name correct of the landowner after 12 years. We don't know who David is. It's not a middle name.
Sorry, attendee. Well, let's not get
No, but
stuck on this.
Let me
But
just finish that. I
Yes.
wrote and made a number of changes to these heads of terms. So, as far as I'm concerned, these heads of terms were
so I'm not. These
never
are. We're
signed
not
off.
on the heads of terms.
Sorry,
the minutes.
sorry, the minutes. They were never signed off.
Yeah.
The corrections that I made, suggestions that I made, were never incorporated.
So, again, I don't want to get diverted, but attendees here, it has John and Wendy Sadler. They're your parents, is that right?
Yep, correct.
Rob Sadler, that's you.
Yep,
Stuart Sadler is your brother.
that's right.
Henry Church from CBRE and Will Gullett from CBRE. No reference there to a David, is there?
No,
No.
that's my point.
Well, what's incorrect there? Is your brother called Stuart or not?
I think my point is, I've already made my point.
All right.
It's the heading, Mr. Cameron.
Yeah,
Well,
not a good start.
right. But the attendees, is that a correct record of the attendees?
On this set of minutes, it is.
Thank you.
If we refer to the other set of minutes, it's not.
Right. Well, can we just, so you're not here as an expert surveyor. Do you have any expertise in heritage issues?
No, you know that.
Right. And therefore, you're not here to give expert heritage evidence, are you?
No, I've never
No.
claimed that at all.
And so the first subject I'd like to cover is the extent of the objection. Now, in the objection itself, and we can turn it up, so this is CD 2 OBJ 102. And we go to page 6 of that, please. So this is from John Sadler, but he's the objector. You're here on his behalf.
He's unwell.
Well, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And if you go to the second paragraph on the page, I do not object to a sustainable busway from Cambourne to Cambridge. So that's the position of the objector in the objection. Is that correct?
That was the position at the time. As a family, we're pro-development, but as I said in my oral statement today, we have got to learn a lot more about the busway in the last 4 months than we have done in the last 12 years.
But your position in the objection, you did not object to a sustainable busway, correct?
At that time, correct.
Thank you. And then in your proof of evidence, which comes after that's within the last 4 months, you say in your proof, it's para 106 if we need it, we, that's the family,
support the principle of better transport links, but the current proposal fails fundamentally on procedural integrity. So is it still your position that you support the principle of better transport links?
As a developer, I support better transport links. I support the ambition of assuring that Cambourne residents can get to Cambridge to employment sites and commercial sites as quickly as possible. But as I said before, the more I learned about C2C, the less that made sense.
Right. And you say in your oral proof that the right ambition is to connect Cambourne with Cambridge. And that's your most up-to-date position, isn't it?
Yeah, and in particular, employment sites and education.
Right. And in terms of how one should do it, in the objection letter, it said, and we turn it off if we need to, but we'll just see what the position is now. Do you want to get it?
I've got a copy, so.
Page 1,
Yeah.
4th paragraph.
Yep.
And you say there, just before the introduction, together we can deliver a solution that protects the environment, respects local communities, and ensure public funds are used widely. So it's common ground.
Wisely.
Used wisely, yes. It's common ground between us that a solution ought to be devised and promoted to connect Cambourne with Cambridge. That's common ground between us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it already is, isn't it?
Yeah. And in terms of alternatives, if you go to the second paragraph on that letter, the executive summary,
Yep.
last sentence, it ignores the CPPF route, a viable alternative that would deliver similar benefits at a much lower environmental and financial cost. And do you align yourself with the CPPF alternative? Do you support it?
I think the terminology is interesting before, and I will answer your
Yes.
question with a yes or no. I think the CPPF is not an alternative. All we're looking to do, all CPF are looking to do, is replace a section. That's all we're talking about here. A 1.6 mile section between Madingley Mulch and the M11, which is where all of the objections are coming from.
But do you support that proposal to replace a section from Madingley Mulch to the M11 and over the M11?
I support the CPPF proposal in its outline form.
Right. And in its outline form, you mean not the detail, but the principle?
Absolutely. Very much like C2C. Very little in detail.
Right. And in terms of the land which you referred to, that you say that you might be prepared to surrender, can we just go to your own appendices, and we need to go to page 61 in your appendices. So that's
I haven't got page numbers on my hard copy.
okay.
Is this the plan?
It's the plan.
Yeah.
It's the plan. So, on the plan,
Hang on, I could get the hard copy.
yeah. On the plan, you identify, if everybody's got it, which is doing better than me, you identify the land that you own, which
Yep.
is the yellow land,
Yep.
and the on a brownie colour land is the land owned by your family,
Yep.
your parents, And the light blue land
Yep.
is the land owned by St John's College.
That's correct.
So the land which you're offering to make a contribution, and you made it orally today.
Yes.
You made
and
this
I've
point,
already made it in the
Yes.
press as well.
right? So is it your parents' land and your land that you're offering?
It's the brown and the, call it the brown
Yeah.
brown and the yellow land.
Yes.
Obviously, we're not the freeholder of St John's. As you know, and I've made this in my previous proof of evidence, I was, whilst at Savills, I was client director of St John's College for all their property.
So are you speaking on their behalf today?
No, I haven't finished yet. We would certainly be willing to surrender that, and you'd have to ask St John's directly, but I cannot see why they wouldn't.
But you can't speak on their behalf.
No, I've said
Yes.
that.
And when you offered, and you made the offer to surrender land opposite Madingley Wood, the Triple SI, the bulk of the land opposite Madingley Wood, yes, you own some of it,
Yep,
but the bulk of it is owned by St John's College, isn't it?
correct. And we farm it. We have a
Yes.
legal tenancy, so
But-
you'd still need our consent.
Yeah, but it's not something you can offer on their behalf, is it?
No,
Thank you.
but as I said, I don't think it would be a problem.
Right. Now, you say, and indeed your father said, that you're pro-development. And you referred to the fact that you yourself are promoting development elsewhere, and I don't ask you about that. But I do ask you about Bourne and Cambourne. Do you support the local plan strategy of locating an element of growth at Bourne Airfield and Cambourne?
Yes. It should have been the other way round 20 years ago, but that's another matter.
Cambridge West next. You referred to Cambridge West and the commercial element there. Now, in your notes of what you were going to say orally today, it's called oral proof, so I'll just call it that for convenience. You said that a B5, West Cambridge site is an academic university campus with only a handful of external commercial occupants. Are you referring to the existing position or to the planning permission?
Both. So I'm aware of the planning permission, but if you, for example, if you looked at the Cambridge West website, and in there is an occupier map. I'm not suggesting that you look now, but it's only sort of 2 or 3 clicks, and I've got a copy of it here, and I'm not introducing new evidence. It's a really helpful map, and on there it's got a key: on-site amenities, University Cambridge academic departments and institutions, commercial occupiers, and a little bit for start-up companies. There's about 30 or 40 dots or buildings on the plan. There's only 3 commercial occupiers. One is Schlumberger, which I believe the inspectors are going to have a look at. The second one is BAS, that's British Antarctic Surveys, and it's really I wouldn't call them a legitimate commercial occupier. BAS is an independent government research organisation, and it collaborates very, very closely with the university. The third one that's on there is Aviva, A-V-E-V-A, not to be confused with
Not
the
the
insurance
insurance
company.
company.
And they have been in the market on and off now for about 10 years. And they have now signed a lease at Cambridge Science Park, Building 101. So they will be removed or moving off the park very, very shortly. That will only leave 2 occupiers. To give you a bit of a background on this, not so long ago, Microsoft were based here. And they had a collaboration with the university. And they had a requirement for a new European R&D facility. And their preference, and their strong preference, was to remain on this campus. But the university weren't interested. And so Microsoft moved to Station Road, but they always wanted to stay here. And I think this gives an example of how the university works in terms of its commercial bits. And you can tell me when the...
Well, I haven't asked the question yet,
No.
but you're already giving a very long answer. So perhaps I'd be given
Shall
a
I shut
chance
up?
to ask a question.
Shut up, all right.
It's a pity that you aren't here as a surveyor, because I was going to refer you to the specific guidance on being concise,
I'm not here
which
as a chartered
applies
surveyor.
to chartered surveyors as experts, but you're not appearing as an
No,
expert.
absolutely not.
Yeah. So take your freedom while you've got it.
Can I continue?
No.
I have got more.
Can I'm going to ask you a specific question.
Thank you.
Could you turn up core document 405, which is the recent planning permission for Cambridge West? So it's a new planning permission,
Yep,
not existing, outline.
yep.
And if you just look at the description of development, core document 405, page 1, is it right that that planning permission allows up to, not more than, 170,000 square metres of commercial floor space?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
But it will never, ever be built out like that. And just to give you an example, if you take every single science park in and around Cambridge, the first thing that you'll come to, for example, is a lettings board. It's a simple thing when you've got a consent. Who do you ring if you need space? There isn't one in this location. When you look on the website, there's no agents marketing the space. There's no design team. So when you have a requirement, you know, how would the university do it? The flip side to that, if you're an occupier looking for space in Cambridge, you would never consider Cambridge West.
Right, we're moving on from Cambridge West. We're going to Greenbelt. Statement of case, please. Core document 23-15, page 2, paragraph B. Yeah. I'm not able to just go on. Yeah. Do you have that? So this is headed Environmental Impact and Greenbelt Destruction.
Yeah.
So this is your statement of case. You say that it fails to establish very special circumstances, and then next sentence in the next paragraph, given the availability of a viable on-road alternative, the environmental destruction is not only unjustified, it is indefensible. So in your statement of case, the argument that is put is that very special circumstances do not exist because there is an available, viable on-road alternative. Is that correct?
Correct.
What is the viable on-road alternative to which you refer?
A scheme that's been outlined by CPPF.
If that is neither viable nor deliverable, that argument falls away, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's been used many times before, this expression. In the real world, you know, you will be able to design a solution down Madingley Road if you've got the will.
Next issue I want to go on to is consultation.
Yep.
And if we go to your proof of evidence at paragraph 48, you refer to the MHCLG guidance on compulsory purchase, which we've got amongst the documents. Did you have a particular part of the guidance in mind when you referred to it at paragraph 48? And if so, please tell me which part.
No, I think the issue here, and I'm hoping that we can have a conversation on this, that there's been no dialogue
Right. But can I just first, do you point to a
No.
particular you don't? And then, in similar vein, and then we're going to come on to the actual issue on consultation in a moment, but I
Yeah.
just want to, in your proof, paragraph 111, you again refer to the guidance, and I don't take the point that it's been updated since, and that's, but you then refer to a Court of Appeal case, Royal Brompton and Harefield NHS Foundation Trust. Do you rely on a specific principle established in that case?
No, I've just mentioned
No.
it. If
Well-
I'd look to you. Is it relevant or not relevant?
Well, you've put it in,
Yes.
and I'm asking you whether you rely on a particular principle,
No.
and the answer is no.
No.
Okay? And Mott and the Environment Agency, 112, case about fishing licences and salmon.
Yeah.
Do you rely on a particular principle derived from that
I
case?
think the principle there was that there was no communication. There was no consultation.
But this is it was a challenge to a change to an Environment Agency fishing licence which reduced the permissible catch of salmon.
Yes, but the point, wasn't it? I don't want to have a
Well,
legal
you
battle.
put it in.
I did, and I thought that the reason why I put it in was because that they cited the fact that there was no or very little
Yeah.
consultation.
But Mr Sadler, if you're going to refer to cases, you can't just throw them in, can you? You have to identify what the point is that you're seeking the inspectors to draw from it. And if it's just a general consultation point,
Right.
we can note down it's just a general consultation point, is it?
Yeah, and thank you. If I ever get myself in this situation again, which will not happen very soon, I'll make sure that I do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's turn to it's about 1 o'clock, and the next subject is to look at the facts. We're not going to go into every aspect of the consultation. Everybody will be pleased to hear because there are hundreds of pages of it. We're going to do that. Then I've got some questions on scheme proposals, including agricultural operations and the burial site point.
Yes.
And then that's about it, but it's going to take half an hour or so, probably.
To conclude,
Yes.
yes, well, we'll take the lunch adjournment now, bearing in mind that Mr Underwood explained that we need to finish earlier today.
Yes.
Can I just take views on taking a shorter lunch break to make sure that we conclude?
Fine by us, sir, but as long as it's all right for everybody else, we don't speak for anybody else.
Of course, yes.
I'm okay.
Does it cause anybody any difficulty if we resume at 1:30? Just slightly over half an hour. In that case, that's what we'll do. Inquiries adjourned, we'll resume then.